Well, yesterday I went to vote early after laughing about both debates where Carney got humiliated in both French and English. Don't listen to government paid media and go vote anything but liberals, Green Party, Conservative, NPD, Bloc. All of these are better than Mr. Arun Banks in the UK before doing the same with Canada. Yes to democracy, no to communist, overly controlling liberals' way. Liberals know it's easier to control people when they are under the influence of substance and alcohol. I believe government are fine when creating decent laws and rules that would also let the people flourish and improve. It's okay to have roadblocks. It's wrong to end old and micromanage each single thing. Before liberals were progressive, now the conservative are. That's how I see it. And we are live. And I usually start by speaking about parties. Now I will let D-Lord the outsider explain how he sees the parties after hearing us talking about them and after watching them having a debate for like um I don't know, an hour and 20 minutes up to that point. So
I mean,
D-Lord, what do you think of the parties? What's going on here in Canada, dear outsider?
I know. I mean, your system is just the advanced. I mean, your system is just the advanced system of what we have. It seems like you're doing the whole thing. Okay, instead of it's like your liberals are copying our liberals. So I'm not too shocked by anything they say because we've already. Okay, our liberals stole some of your policies about the uh, okay, so you guys have the whole safe harbors, safe use places. That was adopted by the liberals and the Democratic platform. Harm reduction. But then again, your parties are taking the harm reduction philosophy on everything to its extreme, which is the path that the progressives and the modern Democrats are doing. But they're also doing the whole thing. They talk a lot, but it's not the solutions. Because if I don't sound shocked by anything, because certain parts with those sections, at least the two, one is more of the establishment, the other one's that. They work in theoretical, but at the same time, they don't realize they're creating the social contagion. But your situation up there is 10 times worse in the US because you've had that soft bed for liberalism,
Yeah.
severe liberalism to take hold. Because, fun fact, when I started gaming with people from Canada, I ran into a traditional conservative, or like they were conservative ish, which we call conservative, but they were from like the burbs up there, not the cities. Like what's the mining town starts with an S up in Quebec?
S.
You probably started with it. It's a famous mining area. I've heard it. A couple of people I've known, but it's a mining. It's a whole area known for mining in Quebec.
Can't remember.
Uh, but he turned out and others, and like one was a trucker, but they did. You know, your base Canadian still. But you also have a whole generation of people who they're utterly indoctrinated. You'd either have to, because it's like a whole thing if you look at a fall of how a system, and because remember what I said, a lot of your stuff I asked, is your system changing because of immigration
Yeah.
and decriminalization? That is what's causing a lot of revolution. That is actually what caused the destruction of the Democrats in the US, because even I think it's Mayor Adams in New York was one of the first liberal mayors to rein in crime. because crime was getting so high. Uh, like remember what I was saying about like when they ice and then went into these immigrant areas? These immigrant areas are safer. The street vendors are less harassed and everything else. Because not only when ICE went in, they say, oh, there's a criminal migrant. They swept the entire house and they took away like non-criminal migrants, which just happened to be in the same area. So in turn, like, but we're not opposed. The only dark side to the US and Canada would have a hard time is can, and it's also a problem of like with our when we gave the government the Patriot Act, do you trust the people in power not to misuse it, or are they going to walk it further? That's where you guys are. Like
Yeah,
you to crack down on extremism and to rein stuff in, you have to be able to apply force. But how quickly does that do? Because like they're at the part where they're talking about the that one act, right? If
yeah,
one province doesn't do it, like we have stuff here. Like there was before, like prime example, we had issues with our border in Texas, right? We we just diverted funds and put the stuff on the border. Then the federal Biden tried to say we couldn't do that. But here's the thing: we can do that because it's a criminal thing, and that's entirely legal. But our government is also bigger with multiple layers. That's why I say, see, your parties. What's funny, even though the French guy, everything comes back to what's best for Quebec. He is pretty based, but he
But only for
represents his
Quebec.
own people. Oh yeah,
yeah.
he
No,
represents his people
no, he's based for
100%.
Quebec. He will fuck over the rest of Canada.
Oh, that's no doubt. He'd fuck over
That's
the rest
true.
of he would fuck over the rest of Canada if he could save the French Quebecers. Don't get me wrong. That's where his true allegiances lie. But what's funny is he's calling the other liberals out too. The two liberals there.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
And like he's because if you noticed, he's asking very poignant questions. And then you get your conservative guy is a social conservative, but he also realizes he needs to step up and apply force. But you also got the other two people. You got Carney, which is doing the status quo to maintain power. And then you got Singh, who is like the loon, who his stuff is the reason why they're losing power is because there's not enough people who believe like him, but there's also the effect of he is a representative of the split because in a system there's only two candidates up there which you either can choose from. It's the conservative guy, which I'm sure has some stuff, and then you got Carney. Carney, as long as he doesn't look too embarrassing, no
but
one's
yeah, see nothing. Be ready. Like the
the
next 40
normies.
minutes,
Okay,
we will have his
in the
downfall.
like even in the debates we had in the US, like it's only when everybody notices the flaws because in debates not a lot of people unless you're politically in tune watch them. Like if you're not into politics or that's a thing, you're not going to see oh whatever. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
Carney, even though he has been getting trounced, it's because he's smart enough not to say anything stupid.
Ah, be ready.
Yeah.
Be ready. The
No,
next
I was
40
good. No,
minutes, if anyone believes in Carney after the next 40 minutes, they didn't watch that debate. Now it's time, except if you'd like to add anything
No,
else.
you're good. Oh.
Okay, we will do
We have in
this
small
now.
modular reactors. That's the opportunity we have in hydrogen beyond. This country can be a clean energy superpower. My government will help deliver it.
And that is time for this segment. Gentlemen, let us go to our final theme, which is called Leading in a Crisis.
Canadians know how to weather a storm. Canadians know how to get through a difficult time.
If, at the end of the day, we end up with the balance of power, Quebec is safer than it could be in any other scenario.
Now is not a time for weakness. Now is the time to take back control.
Canadians are always ready when someone else drops the gloves.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay, leading in a crisis is a pretty broad theme that allows us to explore many different avenues here. So let's get to it. Mr. Carney, you get the first question this time. We haven't balanced a budget in this country in 17 years, and 10 of those years were under your party.
And it was an advisor for a lot of that 10 years. So it's kind of funny. Very funny. Any thoughts, Mandalore?
It's all bullshit and lies. And just to correct D-Lord, he's not smart. He says whatever he will say. He's just lying. He's lying. Just Jagmeet lies and says all these people do other worse things when that's just a lie. Carney lies and just sort of says, "Oh yeah, we'll do this and this and this," and he's going to do nothing. He's going to make things worse.
Yeah, I cannot wait to see the train wreck.
You have pledged to get us to a balanced budget in 3 years. Question is, how?
So let me put this in the context of leading in a crisis, which is, in a crisis, you got to plan for the worst. Worst is that the U.S. actually does want to take us over.
No, the worst is actually Liberals having a fourth term. That's what I got to say.
The worst is that we go bankrupt and we destroy ourselves with these stupid governments.
Liberal. This is exactly what they're.
No, but they go so anti-Trump that they shoot themselves in the foot.
We will go bankrupt. Trust me. If Liberals get back there, they.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But because they're so anti-Trump that they will, because all Trump wanted was for Canada to better itself and the border. Trudeau was like, nope. They're so anti-Trump. If Trump says, all you need to do, and I'll drop every fucking, you can keep all your tariffs on us. We'll drop yours. All you need to do is secure your border, arrest criminals, and deport your illegals. And the Liberals would go, fuck you.
Yeah. Just because it's Trump.
Yep.
No, the thing. So let me say this. The thing you guys have the issue with is the problem with social programs. After a while, they drain your system. It's
not that bad. It's overspending money we don't have. Like sending money fucking
That's always
Ukraine.
happens.
Fucking Ukraine. Like why, guys? You're poor.
Well, and with the NDP, they spend a lot of your money with very little to show for it, just like the Democrats with all their stuff that they're now getting in shit for, like in California, that they spent all this money on a rail system that there's no proof of anything's been done towards it. And that's pretty much the whole system in Canada with under the NDP.
Yeah.
Plan to build, and that'll include a fiscal plan, and I will get to that in a second. The third thing is you need to respond in a crisis with overwhelming force. You need to think big. You need to move rapidly. The things we've been discussing today are a subset of what we can and should do as a nation, and we can deliver. And government can play a role, but its role has to be catalytic. And so
keep in mind, the question is, how will you balance the budget? And now it's been like 2 minutes. It should be the question to be answered, and he just expand and expand and expand. I think he hopes for the viewer and whoever is going to vote for him to forget what was the question. He didn't answer anything.
It's the same thing as when you used to watch Trudeau in the House answer questions. He would repeat the same line anytime someone questioned him on something serious, and just go, "We're working forward towards this. We're working to help Canadians and blah blah blah." Well, how are you doing it? We're working forward. We're working towards helping Canadians. We're working for it. But
no
it would never
plan, just big words.
Yep, just broad statements with no actual answers, and it's just and he's continuing it. but he's worse.
He's worse because apparently he was in finance, and that gives him a pedigree.
Our approach is that we will slow the rate of spending. It's been growing at 9%
My
a year,
ass.
operational spending, program spending, away from transfers individual, 9% a
No.
year. We'll slow that to 2%.
They
We will
won't.
focus on a small amount of capital spending by the federal government in order to drive.
And the rich. We must say this. If you vote liberal, you vote for the rich to get more power. This is exactly what's going on.
Enormous private investment up to $500 billion by 5 years.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. Ukraine surely constitutes a crisis. Leading in a time of crisis, Mr. Poilievre, question for you. If the United States withholds support from Ukraine going forward, do you believe Canada should commit more to assist?
I believe we should continue to support Ukraine. Our party
And
supported.
that's what fucks me over with him is.
Okay.
Well,
so,
what I heard is he wants to send stuff and not money necessarily, so they
Okay,
won't have the
so
choice to use
here's-
the items and such.
So here's a complicated. Ukraine is about complicated like the October 6th, October 7th situation with like Israel and Hamas. Like that exposed the liberals and the progressives to be anti-Semitic and other stuff but Ukraine's a little different because Ukraine doesn't. So we all know it's a corrupt hellhole. Going back a long time, even back to 2008 with Biden, like when they had the prosecutor removed.
But he never did that. He never
like
threatened.
the stuff with Burisma and other stuff around. Like Ukraine's always been corrupt.
Whoa.
Like
Until Trump went after Ukraine, everyone talked about it was the most corrupt country in the world and how it was this money laundering capital of the world, and it was just corrupt. And then Trump questioned the one situation about Hunter's son or Biden's son Hunter, and suddenly Ukraine was wonderful. We have to defend it. How dare we?
See, part of it, the whole thing with Ukraine as well, it is also a hotbed because the Russians wanted Sevastopol. Sevastopol is historically their military port to the Black Sea. Okay? That is what they wanted. Then Putin tried to say, in a very quick succession, airdrop into the airport, which is right next to Kiev, where he thought if he took the airport, and if he did, he could have moved on Kiev almost instantly, and it had been a quick, painless war. But what's turning out is we are, even in the U.S., we're just sending arms that are about to expire.
It still should be sent to them.
But the thing about this is, right, it's not because in a political situation, it's a hotbed of stuff where we are letting munitions that are about to expire be used because, I mean, it's either that or we have to destroy them. But the same way of we don't want to let the Russians win because there's the belief right now, even though the Russians have bled capital in whatever, because with mercenaries, because it's no secret, they do have an organized army. They could crush Ukraine if they were given enough force. How long would it take is the question. They've been fighting with conscripts or mercenaries. Now, giving them money is the hotbed but they also, at the same time, everyone has to admit you cannot let Putin win.
Well, and here's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. If you even question this, you're told that you're a Russian asset, Russian spy, and that you're a Putin puppet. Not every war has two good sides. Some wars have no side that's good and no side that should win. This is one of those wars that there is no good side.
There
They both
isn't.
suck.
Because Zelensky was a TV star. Like even
He's a
when
comedian.
even when you look at it, because what I'm seeing in your thing is, right, if you have extra munitions, send them over there. But the problem is Ukraine is that potential problem, that territorial conflict that could spiral out, because, and I've said this about with Ukraine as well, no one wants the two. Okay. The logical conclusion is the two-state solution, meaning Ukraine cedes the land, I think it's a Donetsk, which is the eastern part that's already taken. Give that to Russia. Don't let them move any further.
Yeah.
Because just give them, cede that land. Russia firmly has scepter pull. But both Zelensky and Putin are both fighting over pride.
And now we get it.
Yeah.
I guess we can react to the rest of the debate. Let's see.
Donating missiles that the Canadian military was decommissioning. We supported
Right
funds
there.
and other armaments to back.
That's what I was saying. Conservative, they don't want to throw some money. They want to send weapons and to help, but not with direct money, which is better than whatever we were doing.
What did I
for
say? Weapons
the
were about to
Liberals.
be decommissioned. That's what we've been
Yeah.
doing.
Even that,
And
I
that's
don't agree
better.
with.
The Ukrainians in the defense of their sovereignty. We also need to rebuild our own Canadian military because the Russians want to make incursions into our waters. We'll be buying 4 massive Arctic icebreakers. I'll be opening the first Arctic base since the Cold War in Canada, CFB Iqaluit. We're going to double the size of the Arctic Rangers and fill the vacancies in our Canadian armed forces. We need a change to rebuild our military, which has been so disintegrated under the cuts and the mismanagement of the last 10 years. But we can have a change because we have the best soldiers, sailors, and airmen in the world, and they will have full backing from my government if you give me the honor of becoming Prime Minister.
I may come back to that.
So this proves again, he talks a lot about change. And this is why people are afraid. This is why liberals are shitting their pants right now. Because he's like, that guy is not for the statu quo, based on what he says at least. We will see if he's elected, if he really changed things around. But let's be honest. Do you really want to vote Carney? Do you really think the guy will change anything? If you were poor right now, you won't be any richer under Carney. He is the same as Trudeau, worse.
So here's the thing, like what he is talking about doing, right, is, okay, fun fact. Do you know why while you're hearing talk about Arctic and like Greenland as a prime example? Greenland has some up there about key underwater cables that control the internet or allow internet access, right, to nations. The Russians,
It's a security thing.
it's a security thing with the Arctic, because the Arctic, like, we keep from, it goes back to Cold War policy. We keep like a strike wing up there that can fly to wherever. Like, Canadians, don't get me wrong, you may not have the biggest military, but you got very good specialized forces that, I want to say the top sniper right now is Canadian. Or they're the better ones. The longest shots. But like that type of stuff he's talking about doing, that's because Russia has been threatening to move across the Arctic. But bear in mind, most of that to Canadians in your country don't realize that's barren north. Barely animals live up there.
Yeah.
Like, that is
It's
like,
cold.
yeah, it's kind of like, I want to say it's up near Nova Scotia where he would do it. Like, but that is like, pardon the phrase, that's no man's land.
Yeah,
barely
that's true.
animals live up there.
Barely plants.
Like,
in the open
so
forum,
Thank
because
you.
I'm not sure we got an answer about Ukraine on that one, but okay.
Well,
Going on. Monsieur
the answer,
Blanchet,
the answer was yes.
we'll get more details perhaps as we go forward. Monsieur Blanchet, given the U.S.
Gotta
trade
take
war,
move.
should any talk of a referendum on Quebec independence be put on pause?
That one is easy. It will happen only after the negotiation is over, and that's a good thing. I want to say I support the idea. We must help Ukraine, but we also must help the civilians of Gaza, and we must destroy
Oh, fuck
Hamas,
off.
which is a terrorist.
I strongly disagree with that because let's be honest, we are not rich. We are already broke, and the more we spread our wings of Canada, the
Yeah.
worse it becomes for us.
okay,
Like,
the
The
problem
French
here.
don't like the Jews. French
Okay,
are not
here's
big.
here's the
I
big
don't
thing.
care about who's who. I don't even know who represent Gaza. I just know like there's a
Terrorists.
conflict there, and hopefully they will bomb each other for real. Like I'm so done hearing about that conflict. It's ridiculous.
So the bigger problem that you guys are going to run into, and this is what happened with the Syrian conflict under. Okay, so it's not a minor territorial problem. Like, you know, when the whole Syrian conflict kicked off recently before the whole Assad getting removed, when ISIS attacked Syria and all that, everyone's like, stay out of it. Basically, that and between the collapse in Egypt. So, as goes Saudi Arabia and Egypt, goes the rest of the Middle East. They're like your good indicators. Syria, with all the refugees that flowed out of Syria, that was a leading catalyst in the modern times for the reason why. Like, it kicked off a bunch of refugee crises. That's when they started bumbling into Europe. The Palestinian thing, the recent, like, October 7th, liberals do not want to admit there's anti-Semitism, but if you ask most people, look, a two-state solution would be the best thing for Israel,
Not anymore.
but
Just nuke that place.
But
I don't
there's
care
a
who
pro-
survived. Just nuke
So
them.
let me say this, like it's no diatribe. This is where it's a trap for a lot of people because the Jews that are in Israel are different than global Jewish people. They are the most Zionistic of Zionists. They are the ones who they're shell shocked because it's the size of New Jersey. There's missile strikes. There's car bombs every day. This was prior to October 7th. But I keep hearing that. But then again, the Palestinians don't disregard Hamas. Yet they're like, Hamas is like, they let Hamas operate under a hospital, knowing damn well Israel, to get rid of Hamas, they go, would not strike a hospital.
No, here's the thing. Hamas places their bases in civilian areas.
Yes.
Office buildings, which are no longer there, in hospitals, in schools, in everywhere.
Yeah.
That way, when Israel responds to attacks or responds to the base, they can say, "Ha! Israel's attacking the hospital." When in all honesty, they're attacking Hamas. And every Israel attack, maybe they've stopped doing it recently because of how Palestinians are defending Hamas. But up until recently, Israel always warned them, saying, "Get out! We're coming! We're attacking! We're nuking."
They
the
drop
base."
pamphlets and tell them to get out. That's what people don't tell. Like, there's a fog of war over there because the infrastructure damage happening. Because this is what a lot of people who are in tune with it is like, all these people go, you need to help them because they're refugees, or you need to do this.
We don't even have the space. We don't
You
even
don't
have the
it.
house.
None of the, even Europe doesn't have all of the ability to deal with the refugees, because this is the same Europe and us. Like, we've been dealing with, so like when in the US, right? So when we had to take in a lot of Mexican migrants because Central and South America was going to shit, right?
Yeah.
They left their country to come to the US.
And
But
then they
there's also this part where they don't integrate.
That's true, and it's the same here, so let's hear out more about that.
Organization. You know what? I don't want to be the leader of Canada. You will understand that. I don't want to be prime minister. But I
And
can
he is
offer
on
to
the
be a
Canadian
partner,
debate.
a responsible partner, a collaborative partner. If Quebec is respected in its differences, in its aluminum industry and lumberwood industry and culture and French language and
I'm
values of
Quebecer, I
security
speak
of the
French,
state,
and
which
I
is the
laugh at
price
this
to be paid in
bullshit.
order to have real equality.
Look, you gotta have
Then,
pride
if we are
as a
respected,
Frenchman.
we will be a partner,
No,
and then
I'm
even Canada
Canadian,
will
not
be
Quebecer.
stronger in its negotiation against Donald Trump. This is what I am offering. Respect us.
Mr. Singh, I watched last night's debate. You seem very eager
The
to talk about
hold
this
on
socialists
a-
will
here, so
talk.
let's talk a little
The
more
Okay,
healthcare
hold on a
socialists
right
will
now.
sec.
talk.
Pause it a sec.
You have made
You have, so it's very more clear to me now. Quebecers are part of them feel the need, like they need to be a separate state. Because I've heard this before. It's not like they feel, okay, they feel that they're an economic powerhouse because they like say we have wood, aluminum, and other resources, right? We can
We don't
try to
have the
be,
leader or the brain to manage that well.
so they are an economic center that people deal with. It's like, let's say in the US, if Texas broke off, we have a good base of like economy that we can sustain ourselves. Quebec might have that in sections, but you do have resources in that area. And he's like, well, you got to be respected. And then, but we got to also be. See, what I'm hearing a lot from these leaders is this particular section is think of nationalism versus globalism.
Yeah.
Globalist agenda. Okay, so the
That's the
concept.
liberal, based on the platform I've heard and the plan they have for the next 15 years if they keep getting elected. We will have globalist bullshit.
So globalism, right? Because remember when I said we asked, and I started at the beginning of all of this stuff. What is the stance in the growth of nationalism? That means globalism means you have. How you, Gray?
Gray is there, so if the Gray is available, the Gray shall have a link to react to
Gray, if you
Poilievre's.
no, but terms of serious. It's like the nationalist versus globalist agenda, because what happens is globalist, right? Like Klaus Schwab, and you got Canada can't get rid of the stink of the World Economic Forum off of them.
Oh, I thought you were going to say French.
Oh, that's just part of it. Because when you look at like who was going to replace Trudeau, I remember it was either going to be Carney or another woman. Like, there's a couple of leaders. They were already eyeing people to replace Carney. And the whole thing, not Carney, even Carney or Trudeau, even.
Oh, it was here's you're kind of out of it. Remember they weren't no, and why I'm saying that is it was a fake election. They didn't even allow everyone to vote who were in members of the Liberal Party to vote in the leader election.
I heard only 40% were able to vote for.
Were allowed to vote.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous.
People, it was all a setup, like because Christina Cokehead wasn't even trying. It was set up because even before Trudeau stepped down, he was starting to speak on behalf of Canada.
Who was the woman eyeing? Because I remember when there was the World Economic Forum thing, they were talking about.
Are you talking about the one with glasses?
She either got dismayed or she had a scandal or something and had to resign. a year or so because everyone knew Trudeau was compromised. But the problem is who to replace him with.
There were so many of those. But here's the thing. How many? There was 2 leaders.
I'm going to say it was Theresa LeMay. Yeah, her.
There was 2 people who were kicked out of the election after paying to be in the election. And I didn't trust them. What's her name? There was the one Indian woman who edited every photo of her to make her look younger and better looking. It's like, if you can't even be honest about your face, you can't be honest as a leader.
Really? I didn't know about this shit.
It was 2 Indians. One was, I can't remember why she was kicked out, but the guy was kicked out for not speaking French, I think.
And Carney sucks in French.
And after Trudeau already stepped down when they were still having an election, but he was still technically in power, they were saying Canada's want Carney to speak on behalf of them, which was bullshit. Carney was speaking on behalf of Canada when there was no one elected yet. It was set up for Carney to take over. It was a rigged election that was not legit. So no, you might have seen people were being set up to take over after him, but no, it was like the Democrats version where it was like when they threw in Kamala, it wasn't legit. It was rigged.
Many promises on health care.
We got
if a province says to you, we'll take your money for health care, but not your conditions on how to spend it.
How does it sound? Does it sound okay? It's my your laptop.
We can't be giving away money without.
Yeah. You sound great. Welcome to the stream, and I will just go back a bit in the past.
Yeah, I want to see what he says. Let me respond to him, especially if he mentions
and values of secularity of the state, which is the price to be paid in order to have real equality. Then, if we are respected, we will be a partner, and then even Canada will be stronger in its negotiation against
Quebec is
Donald
best.
Trump. This is what I am.
Quebec above all.
Us.
Mr. Singh,
Okay, it's hold on a second. It's the
debate.
trap
You seem
of
very
it's the
eager to
liberal
talk about
trap of
healthcare, so let's talk a little more health.
Hold on. It is what you're saying here is the liberal trap of equality. The liberal philosophy of being everyone is equal and there can't be any bigotry or hatred type stuff, or you gotta understand, this doesn't work in Europe. You know why? Because you have to tell a Frenchman they're equivalent to a German. You have to tell a Swedish person they're equal to a Norwegian. And this doesn't work because in a utopia, you're asking people to set aside.
There's no such thing as a utopia.
Like,
we will have an utopia here in Canada if
there
is liberal gets back there. We will have one.
Because you're getting what I'm saying. All these people who do have this philosophy, this is what Europe has tried. The European liberals and progressives have tried to say there is no borders. They tried to say with like the EU.
And how's that working for them?
The problem is you cannot tell a Frenchman they're equivalent to a German because culture. There's either too much cultural blood spilt. It goes beyond the modern era. You got some parts, but like what he's talking about is the trap of equality. Everyone needs to be equal, but they don't ever realize they have to crack eggs to make this omelet work, and that means they have to step on somebody. And
okay, I want to get to what the retard with the porta potty on his head.
Yeah. So now we will hear a retard socialist talking about bullshit to sound
retard
cool.
with the porta potty on his head.
Pink one.
Here right now, you have made many promises on health care. If a province says to you, we'll take your money for health care, but not your conditions on how to spend it, what do?
We've got to negotiate. We can't be giving away money without clear conditions. We're in a healthcare crisis right now, and a crisis that is hurting people across this country. People are waiting desperately in line.
Created by the
emergency rooms for
NDP and liberals,
hours and
fuckhead.
hours. Seniors are waiting for years and years to get the care that they need
He
for
has a weird
surgeries
face.
that would.
We don't have enough doctors here,
It
and
was all
yet
created
he
by
wants
people.
more people here for
He-
less doctors.
Whoa. This is a multi-step issue. For one, they fired how many during COVID, which hurt us. They're bringing in how many pieces of shit who are filling up the system, who are filling it, taking over positions. I don't mean jobs. I mean that are filling waiting rooms.
Okay, do you know why?
They are especially NDP and liberals have cut how many hospital jobs? Like in Manitoba alone, a bunch of hospital emergency rooms were turned to non-emergency rooms, and some were just shut down.
Oh, wait. I could guess some of these emergency rooms are turned into places where people can just use substance. I would be surprised.
That would be in BC, and
It's really happened somewhere. I was joking. I can't believe it.
I'm pretty sure it has. I don't know for sure.
That's a circus.
Our medical issues are caused by the liberals and the NDP, who want to block people from being able to pay to use hospitals. So, like, they're going to the States because guess what? You go, you pay an arm and a leg, but you get shit done. My sister, who was found out to have cancer, flew to New York and is still recovering from chemo because she would be still waiting to even get her first treatment here. It is not the way he's trying to do it, and he wants more illegals and pieces of shit brought into this country from his homeland. Because he may be born in Canada, but he's a piece of shit. He looks like a shit, talks like a shit, and acts like a shit.
He looks like a cartoon character.
He is.
That pink is so. It doesn't. I don't know. He really does.
He's a
And you must hear it when he speaks about his party being full of women and diversity important.
It's a fag who used to suck off Justin Trudeau under the desk.
Oh my goodness!
So here's actually something I have to ask
seeing this piece of shit.
So I have to ask the Canadians. Okay, so the issue is when we did the Affordable Health Care Act, we had TennCare prior. We also had Romney Care, which is very similar. The reason why universal health care doesn't work on a large-scale system, but it works in a Sweden or a smaller population like Norway or other areas, is because you're servicing what is a smaller You're servicing a smaller population. The problem with our system, and you saw this in like early parts of the Affordable Health Care Act or Obamacare, is that sometimes it's mostly known, is it broke down Delaware. Delaware is basically the size of a parking lot. They have like primary care. It's not about a money thing. Like healthcare, one of the biggest things is there's a way to save money in healthcare and conditions. But the idea is specialist, right? Because I remember hearing things about specialist in like Canada, right? Everyone looks at the Canadian healthcare system as highly successful.
It's a failure, folks.
Well, okay, I'm going to ask this: how long does it take to get a GP?
Sparkles,
your keyboard's way too loud.
Is it? Oh, what would be talking? No. You of all people should not be telling me that. Multi can tell me that, but you, Mr.
You know what? When I actually do, the fact to load is your reach on your mic. Sorry.
But what's a GP? Mandalore, what's a GP?
General practitioner, family doctor.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I hate. No, that's not.
I don't have any for years. And my grandma waited for so long to get one. Maybe she will die before she get one.
Before things got really bad, it could be years before you got one. Now it's years upon years, especially in places that have high levels of foreigners brought in because they're all trying to see them. They're trying to get into them. And like when one spot opens in like places like Quebec, BC, Vancouver, everywhere, there's lines to apply to see the new to get a new doctor.
And wait for psychology and such, like mental health, it's even worse than physical health.
Oh,
and now there's
a mental health system.
And then what's the other one, I believe? And I said, okay, so in the U.S., like, how hard is it to get into a specialist if you need it?
Like, you need the money, and you're okay.
No, but no, mental health. I had to wait about a year and a half to 2 years to get into the group session, to sort of where you do this group sort of therapy bullshit, and then you have to wait longer to get into a specialist.
But
Thankfully,
that was fast.
No,
I know people that waited for like 2 years for that.
No, it was a year and a half to 2 years just to get into the program to register yourself. The group therapy, not even actual therapy, it's a group session.
I like group therapy.
But no, where they ask you questions and whatnot. Then from there, it can take 1 to 3 years, if not longer, to actually get a psychologist. If you want a private, if you're fine with group one, it could take 1 to 2 years. If you want to get a private doctor, 2 to 3 years. Thankfully, my friend who passed, who I bring up every so and so, he was with one of the best doctors in Winnipeg, and he asked if I could come see him because I was going through similar situations as him, and that's how I got in. And then when I was done and I was kicked out of my therapy, my insurance.
You got kicked out? Why?
No, my insurance. Insurance stopped covering it because they didn't think I wasn't getting better enough, quick enough. So they
said kicked out, so it made it seem like you did something wrong. Like,
no.
Sometimes they give you a certain amount. Like my mother had like 5 or 6.
It all depends. It depends on what the issue is. If it's a temporary thing, but they didn't think I was doing good. Like if it was doing enough and they were still good enough, quick enough, they would still allow me to continue for a little bit longer. But because they didn't think I was healing quick enough mentally, they cut me off. But if it weren't for after that point, like after I'd gone,
give you a time limit to heal mentally.
I was with him for about a year, and so this was about 3-4 hours, but with a year and a half, 2 years. So about 4 years after the initial being recommended to the mental health thing, did they finally call me saying, "Oh, we can show you to a doctor," after I'd already been through the system I did it myself.
Okay.
Did they finally call me?
But yeah, my mother, she had like 6 or 7 sessions, and now they let her go. But like she waited for months to get sessions. That's
and so many of my wife was looking to talk to someone, and the problem is so many of them are pro-gender. They're doctors for the gender reassignment, which is just. So it's like I said you can go, but they're not going to help you. They're just going to reaffirm any issues you have. They're going to, and it was 100% then she stopped seeing them.
And now I will address this comment. Jagmeet believes the NPD can extract money via taxing the rich. He doesn't realize this drives investor jobs and those rich people away from Canada. And this makes sense. That comment, I fully agree. And he also thinks, based on what he says, I don't know if he really believes it, but at least he let the people think that. You can just simply make things free because money fall off the sky here in Canada. Yeah, this is how it goes. Like, we will just say, oh, yeah, groceries, now there's a roof there. You can go
there is an investor class, Multi. No, the thing is, what happened in like the last U.S. election is there is an investor class that, like the tech bros and the Silicon Valley were funding the Democrats because we were able to track the money of the major donors. And I'm sure it's the same in Canada because it takes money to conduct politics. There are people who and that's the thing. There is an upper crust of liberal philosophy in general that hates the rich and they want to eat the rich, and then there's a section that just wants the co-ops and to be everyone
What does eat
be
the rich
equal.
even mean? I don't really know what that even means, to be honest. When I
Eat
see
the
it,
rich, tax
Yeah.
them until they run away. That's what it
Okay,
means.
so what's funny, in the
Then what?
US about 50, 60 years ago, right? Rich people were paying 50% of their taxes, okay? Like in the 60s and 70s, Hollywood people were basically taxed almost 70, 80% of their income. That's what people don't realize. Like, I remember hearing a story about this. Will just tell you, this was years when O'Reilly was on Fox. He talked about how much he pays in taxes. In total, between federal and state, he loses like 50%, 56% of his income because he was off in Rhode Island, and then he has stuff in New York between his income and taxes. You already in a situation in the US already have where the top 5% pay ridiculous amounts. This is in very huge conflict with the liberal principle of the rich. You shouldn't have a super rich bourgeoisie class, but they need the money.
They won't be rich anymore if they get more tax. Anyway,
Okay,
with that being said,
Yeah, so no.
we will play just
Wait.
like Canada. Yeah. good
Breaking
content.
news. What is this? Oh, yeah, breaking news. Liberal MP Ryan Turnbull has been busted for falsifying elections documents.
Is it true? I'm not surprised if it is actually true.
Yeah, no, it's true. So
And we won't hear about that, no, because that will damage people voting Monday.
So basically, the funny.
We must not scare away the people.
Okay,
that
no,
will
you know,
still
no,
vote
it's the
this
middle. No, it's the middle of the
disgusting
week.
party.
No, it's the middle of the week. It wasn't okay. If it's either dumped on a Monday or a Friday, if any news, political news, gets dumped on a Friday, they hope it's washed out by the weekend news cycle.
no,
Monday.
it's not. Sometimes it literally is. If it's not their sort of idea, they bury. If it's not something that they usually like to cover, like black on black crime or something like that, they'll bury it.
I'm with you, Snowflake. I also do pre-vote. I advance vote. I can't remember the exact word, but yeah, I voted Sunday and conservative as well. Even if I know I will lose because my place where I live right now is surrounded by these nut job of liberals. I still voted conservative. I don't give a crap about what my neighbor will vote for. Anyway, they will die in 20 years, so that doesn't really matter that much.
See that French
let's-
attitude? We're dead soon. I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. They will die anyway. So let's just play the rest. I cannot wait for these boomer to die, to be honest, because they are the one voting liberal.
Darth
remove pain or
Mandalore
help
looks like
them
he's up
deal
to
with
no good every
prevailing
time.
issues. We're in a serious crisis. Healthcare workers are burnt out. They are overstretched.
Because
and
of
what
you
we're seeing
fuckers.
is more and more privatization, and that is hurting our public universal healthcare system. So we've got to fight back against it. We cannot allow our public money to go to a for-profit.
How is privatization of healthcare, where people who can afford it, instead of waiting, take people who are the rich who can afford, and then go and pay for themselves?
And there's
So
money
wait a
floating
minute.
around with privatization as
There's
well.
no, but again, people who can pay
Market.
get done through it quicker and aren't filling up the lines. Oh, but that's taking away things like,
No, it's free up the market.
yes, it makes for the
There's
people who can't
competition.
afford it, their lines shorter. Also, you fired everyone during that. That's why everyone is overloaded, is because you fired everyone, you fucking piece
Why did
of
they fire everyone?
COVID, because during when they weren't doing it, when people who didn't get the shots who
Yeah.
were smart.
Oh, okay. that's messed up. Yeah, so they got fired. They didn't go to the show.
You can basically tell. Sorry, I'm talking to lots of people because it's more at least politically informed.
I just heard your typing and your little clicking noise, just so you know.
Don't bring your own
on his head, because everything that comes out of that head is fucking bullshit.
So here's the thing about when I said earlier in one of the prior, because remember about social engineering. The problem is, like, in the U.S., we want to reform. The reason why it's hard to have an adult conversation on Social Security is you would have to break down either into the mismanagement and the spending. The thing is, healthcare is one of the most expensive thing we have to any society. Social programs are some of the biggest drain because you cannot. Here's the thing: you cannot have a very strong, super strong military with having a social program. Social programs are more bound to drain as much as being highly militarized. Like in the U.S., this is our problem is we maintain social programs to a degree. Like, we're going to have to redo that because what you're talking about in privatization, like, one of the biggest things is that would help us in the U.S., and no one wants to even talk about it, is in interstate blocking of insurance companies. Just do it. That would open up competitive rates and bring down the cost, bring down lawsuits. That's a part, but you don't hear that. But that would save private insurances and save the rates. But like in Canada, right? So in the US, if you have private health care, you need cancer treatments, you can get into doctors quicker by paying. There's treatments, though, that people want in the US that our FDA blocks because we feel they're not right. They go to Canada to get it. Like, there's a whole industry where sometimes, but what you guys are proposing is having private health care like we have in the US, but you need the means and the structure and the specialists.
We haven't heard the guy finish what he was saying.
Yeah,
Sorry,
she's right. Like, she's right.
Mm-hmm.
Janet is crazy, but we like to hear about crazy. So let the crazy in pink speak now.
Too bad, troublemaker.
Private clinic lining the pockets of a rich CEO or investors instead of going towards
rich
care.
CEO, well, I have a Rolex and that's
solutions where care gets to people.
Okay. What?
Money that comes into healthcare is brought in by taxes. People who are going to private sources to get their health care does not take away the taxes that they're paying on others when they're taxed. Jesus fucking Christ. How? Just play so we can get through this piece of shit.
That guy speaks about let's tear down the elite, the CEOs, while I have a Rolex named Mr. Riddy. and he goes on podcast defending him being the socialist with Rolex.
Not profiting those at the very top. And so that's my commitment. I'm going to fight to make sure we defend our healthcare against the threats
and
of
tax more
and privatization.
Okay, we now go to open forum debate, and perhaps Mr. Poilievre, you get the first word here. This might be a good time to put a little more flesh on the bone of what you think Canada could do for Ukraine if the U.S. backs out.
Yes, and my answer is that we should continue to support Ukraine. We don't need to follow the Americans in everything they do. When they're wrong, then we will stand on our own and with other allies. And with respect to Ukraine, that of course includes support with intelligence, equipment, armaments, but it also includes defunding Putin. Right now, Vladimir Putin has a monopoly on the European energy market because, frankly, the Liberals blocked exports of Canadian natural gas off the Atlantic coast. They blocked multiple projects. I would rapidly approve those projects on national security grounds so that we can actually ship Canadian natural gas over to Europe, break European dependence on Putin, defund the war.
But the only way I see it, the only reason why the Liberals want this to be blocked is because they know Canada can be great again, and they want to remain the elites. They want to govern the small people, the peasants, as we call them. So by blocking the export like that, you get less money, and they're glad the taxpayer are the reason why there's money floating around. They don't want the country to be strong because they are liberals. They hate Canada. Let's be honest, liberals, they hate Canada. This is what they are. Any thoughts on that, Mandalore?
Just hit play.
Liberals hate Canada. That's how I
and
see it.
turn dollars for dictators back into paychecks for our people.
Mr. Carney, you wanted to add?
Well, I want to go to the situation in Ukraine because it's very important. We've been a steadfast, Canada's been a steadfast ally, and Canadians have stepped up, welcoming Ukrainians into their homes and supporting them in other ways.
You guys are welcoming them in your homes?
You know, in my first month as Prime Minister, we joined the Coalition of the Willing.
What did you ask, Ms. Parko?
He said you guys are welcoming them, welcome. I don't know. I can't say it. Welcoming them into your homes. What does that mean? The Ukrainians.
I have a brain freeze. I have no idea.
So basically, there's a concept of people. Goes back to what I'm saying. I said earlier, wars create refugees, droughts, and social conditions. Where, like in the U.S., the reason why a lot of the Irish wound up here was because of the Irish potato famine. They had to migrate, so they came to the U.S. as a prime cause. The reason why you're seeing a lot of the Muslims spread out from the Middle East into Europe is largely due to the social breakdown in the war that's been happening amongst themselves. Now, this big deal, like, by the way, you guys forget on healthcare, do you remember the praising and the joy when the United Healthcare CEO was just murdered on the street by the crazy guy?
I remember, but this wasn't answering my question. You suck. I don't even know.
That's D-Lord. Like, you can't.
No, he basically no. See, the thing is, the reason why they take them in as refugee status, that is, and it's a liberal.
So they're actually taking them in their homes. Is what.
That's what. Yeah.
Welcoming
them into their homes is saying that yes, they are more than happy to help these fuckers out and give them a home.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Like, so people are letting people live with them. The Ukrainians live with them. That's what I was wondering. Like,
okay, there's sections of New York. Okay, one of the things they got New York caught up was there's a lot of empty buildings. People have.
Here it's the same, and we will pause on that because we already talked in length about that housing crisis that the Liberal want to keep doing and treating.
It's the U.S. stepped back. So led by France, the United Kingdom, with Ukraine, number European nations, Australia, ourselves, New Zealand. That's an example of how the new world is going to be. Canada participating in these areas and helping. It also means open trade.
How can you help if you're broke? And this is exactly what will happen with another liberal term. You're muted, Mandalore. I don't know why. Mandalore.
This is exactly what the fuck happened in the States. And the Biden and Kamala were saying, well, and all the money that went for emergencies. And FEMA was all gone because of illegals. And this is what they want to do. And then when something happens to us, we can't do fucking shit. And at the same time, they're shitting on the U.S., who are their closest ally, who's the most likely to actually help us and who can get to our help the quickest. And they're going, fuck you. And then they go, oh, but we need your help. We fucked ourselves over. Can you come help us? We're sorry we said all those mean things about us. Or in the Liberals or in the Jagoffs, they'll probably go, we meant what we said. You owe us to come help us.
That they nuke us because they're like,
they'd be too stubborn to ask for help.
Voted against free trade agreement with Ukraine. It means aid for Ukraine. Mr. Poilievre wants to cut foreign aid, including for Ukraine, or not. He didn't
we need to.
for Ukraine. We have to stand by them. We have to be there, and this government has been.
Mr. Singh.
New Democrats absolutely support standing with Ukraine, and will
No
continue
one
to do
asked you.
that. But I appreciate the opportunity in talking about
But yeah,
leadership
he
in
needs
crisis.
to
Talk
speak
about
out.
many of the
Like,
crises we're up against.
that's why he's
and
there.
one of
He
the
wants to
crises we're up
speak out.
against in our country,
He wants to back up
with
the
threat
liberals
of
because
Donald
he's
Trump,
just
the
the
threat of
liberal
trade war,
cockstock here.
and with the privatization and Americanization of our healthcare system is the healthcare system.
But we were
And what
talking
we've
about
learned
Ukraine. Why
today,
do you
Mr.
get back to
Carney
the
mentioned
Austin
slowing operation
shenanigan,
spending.
medical,
That's a
whatever?
cut to services. He said his plan. He has a plan to balance the operating budget within 3 years. That's going to require massive cuts to
This is
spending.
really like
We calculated that at
debating where he
43
just
billion.
changes the topic.
And it's hilarious because he's like, to balance the funding we need to cut the funding. But what he tells people, we will have free everything. That won't cut the spending. That'll just add more. So
Yeah, and
that
nothing
guy
is
is
free.
disconnected to reality.
And the more he wants free stuff, and the more he wants to help other countries, the more it costs everything else.
I'm surprised there's no women up here. That's what I was thinking.
Well, there
I'm
is one female leader, but she's fucking a drunk, insane psycho bitch.
And I gotta add the clip again. The clip that our beloved Mentalor shared yesterday about Jackov, because that was a very funny one.
Well, and
A sack of potatoes, one bag of potatoes.
By the way,
apples.
stop
Wait,
that.
wasn't it apples?
Yeah, it's
Yes.
apples. That's my favorite clip ever. That thing every political stream we will be doing, we will have this guy there.
A sack of potatoes, one bag of potatoes.
Dude,
That's the mascot.
why he
That's
looks
the
at it?
mascot.
Why did he just break up potatoes when he looks at it? Okay.
That's the mascot. This is the guy that tells you, yeah, free everything.
And
But
he
we
knows,
need to
and he
cut
knows the
spending.
plight of the middle and lower classes. Yet he doesn't do enough to do his own shopping that he doesn't know. He's just fed.
One last time.
Oh, that's
A sack of potatoes, one bag of potatoes.
like red and yellow apples too. It's so
I'm
cool.
dying.
Oh God, wow. He's special.
$1 in cuts.
No, he's
in fact,
retarded.
Rosemary Barton, when he was on the show on February 16th, he
needs
said
official
we
leave.
cut spending. He said it would be in operations. He defined it as transfers in health. And finally, longtime Liberal and former House Leader Karina Gould said that Mr. Carney's plans would mean massive cuts. That's the only way to achieve it. So, Mr. Carney, do you think it is leadership to cut health care at a time when it is in crisis? I think it is wrong. We can't do that.
We will not cut transfers for healthcare. We will not cut healthcare spending, full stop.
But
We'll
Mr.
have
Carney,
a detail, if I may.
who do we
if I may-
believe, Mr. Carney today or the one he spoke?
Again, I lost the count. He caught off Carney again, but I must say Carney was shallow as usual, so it doesn't matter that much. But
here's the
again,
thing.
that's Mr. Potato that
No.
that caught off people.
And he wants more money for. He doesn't want privatization because he can't make money because the government can't steal money from that. He wants like the healthcare where provinces or NDP premiers have the worst healthcare.
Yeah.
Look at Manitoba right now. We've had multiple people die in our waiting rooms.
That's horrible.
Free healthcare.
Oh yeah, but people don't want to wait in line for 7 hours. I waited in
They
line.
will die. They will have enough time to die twice.
I waited at an ER.
Died twice.
I waited at a non-emergency because all the ERs were all either too far or were like 8-hour waitings. It said 5 hours. I waited at a non-emergency for chest pains for about 16 hours. I've actually started walking out of them.
No shit. I'm not surprised.
Barton show on February 16th,
I did not.
the one that repeated again that he would cut spending.
If I may.
Who do we believe?
If I may, consistently said
Neither
we'll
of you
preserve
fuckers.
all transfers to the provinces, including the increases. We will preserve all the transfers to individuals, I won't detail them all, but there. So we're looking at addressing an operational spend, which is about $150 billion. We will address that. We will make it more efficient, and we will do it in 3 years, and we'll balance that budget.
We will balance it by adding more spending. This is the finest guy.
And that was part of it. Whoa! And that was part of his budget plan that was so bad during this debate that they took it off the Liberal website because people, even CBC, who they pay to suck their ass,
Suck their asses.
even said, this won't work. This doesn't add up. You're going to help everything by spending more? Like, how are you going to fix the budget by this? And they took it off their website. That's how bad it is.
I am 6 minutes behind Mr. Carney, so I will speak a little bit longer. First, I will support any initiative which will bring Canada aligned with Europe and NATO in order to be stronger and facing new threats. Good. I believe that 2% won't be enough. I'm not more in favor of war than anybody else, but we have responsibilities, and our main ally is removing himself from the stage. So we have to step up. We have to do our part. I want to go somewhere else entirely, however. I want to ask Mr. Carney, if we're speaking about leadership here, if Quebec and Canada were to say, you are not being given a majority government.
He's French. He's slightly
There will be more conservatives than you would like, maybe more New Democrats than you would like, and more people from the bloc than you would like. Will you accept, because you don't seem to be very eager about that, to deal with people which basically are more experienced than you are, as legitimate as...
Just that look! He's like, I'm the best guy here. Shut the fuck up.
He's like, I don't know how to answer this. I'm a retard.
I don't know where I am. I am Biden in Canada.
No, that is literally Biden's I just shit myself look.
You
that
are,
is Biden's I
and
shit
would be
myself
more representative altogether than you would be being alone in your little kingdom. And I want also to propose.
Even if he's laughing, he's like, I don't know what to say. I'm dying. That statement, I must timestamp it as Carney as emotions.
You organize that 1 week after the election. 1 week after the election, we all meet, whatever the result, and we start dealing with this crisis together, because this is what people, either they are from Alberta or Quebec or wherever, this is what people expect from us.
Mr. Carney, is that something you could get behind?
I look forward to meeting with everyone. You're welcome to come, Steve, if you'd like. Week after crisis, but
That's
also, but in all
that's
seriousness,
not very respectful.
No, but I'll come.
It's a non-answer answer.
I come to the.
On jase.
And I gotta say, I think the panel right now, they were smelling blood, and they're all sharks, so they will go after.
No, they weren't smelling blood. They were smelling the shit from his pants.
You and the poop references. Oh my goodness, calm down.
We got a Canadian Biden here.
Whoa, there's a literal pile of shit with a diaper on its head. What talking?
It's pink.
It's potato.
It could be a condom.
I'll come to the court. But
no, he fucks it up.
In a crisis, yes, you need a team. And you need to bring the country along with you. So what I did in the first week was to bring the premiers together, meet with all the Indigenous leaders, and move forward in that context. Now, the question is, who's going to lead out of this? Whoever leads out of this, if I may, Mr. Blanchet, thank you. Whoever's going to lead out of this is going to need to work with all the provinces, work with Labour, work with Indigenous leaders, work with all Canadians to bring them forward in a united front. And if I make this last point, one of the things that has happened, which is a credit to those people at home, is that Canadians are coming together. And it's already...
He says that, but he wants division. I already planted people in conservatives rally to make sure there's chaos there.
What?
Yeah. He also well, you said something I was surprised but not shocked, Mandalore, earlier, that just came out.
Did Trump type buttons in the conservative meetups to try and sort of fuck Pierre over. There's been a lot of slimy things that he's done, ethics violations, that should have gotten him removed, but he's still in the election.
And each single time he talks about conservative and Pierre Poilievre, he's always lying all the time, like really badly. Like he spread misinformation hardcore, and it's kind of hilarious and sad at the same time that he's just authorized to do that. It's like, it's not really democracy anymore. It's just like, I'm not good enough for my opponent, so I will just pretend he's worst. It's kind of disgusting. I mean,
TDS is a thing, because the worst part about people with TDS is
the retardation.
So Trump himself, you have to understand, Trump is somehow this force or this being that inspires even Republicans. I think all Republicans love him, but we tolerate him half the time. People who hate him,
he's my spirit animal.
They lose their collective minds over small stuff he does. Like, what does Trump's personal actions outside of the tariffs, which Canada cucked to very early on, that he did? And what's funny is we haven't even implemented half the tariffs or 3/4 of the tariffs. And just rumors of them, they all go, oh, Trump's responsible for this, the Trump effect, That's how you tell liberals. Liberals have lost their minds, and they see Trump or people behind.
Is that they will shoot themselves in both knees, their head, and their hands, and slit their own throat just because Trump says that's a bad idea.
One right after another.
That's AI Trump saying that.
No.
And we'll get it.
No. And just a quick example is he's removing a violent gang member, and everyone's defending this fucking gang member, going, he's not MS-13, blah, blah, blah. Where his tattoos are blocked from every image by his wife and has a criminal record and is admitted to it. And everyone says they want him gone. But all the liberals go, how dare you? He's innocent, blah, 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 trial. He's not here legally. He's not following rules. He's abusive to his wife.
But unity, buddy. This is what he preaches.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying, is they will kill themselves if Trump says it's bad to kill yourself. They will do anything against Trump.
I wish you would. That would be great, because don't you guys do that already? So
Trump should promote transgenderism, because
the strength of Canadian unity.
Still lagging. I have one small point to make. You will be elected, if you are elected, in the parliament where there are other leaders. I don't know if he called you, or Mr. Poilievre, I don't know if he called you, but before yesterday, you have not spoken to me once, even if I proposed it so many times, but you say I speak to provinces' leaders. You're not.
By the way, he doesn't go in people independent media because he's afraid of the questions. Carney is just hiding all the time. It's like invited to point there.
Well, and then there's
mess up.
Agoff, who just goes and just refuses to answer questions. He just goes, I'm not answering that.
This is half of the candidate there. You cannot trust them because they hide.
So you have the issue that, as I said, you got 3 liberal candidates and then 1 conservative candidate who does semi-represent conservative values up there. The rest of the 3, it's like looking at the DNC debates when the top candidate was running for president.
Yeah.
The thing is, to be safe, liberals will settle with Carney because they realize the other 2 are potentially either biased or crazy.
They all really have awful names.
And then, go back and watch the DNC debate with how they were doing it. You could sometimes see the lanes in the
There was no debate. For this last election, there was none.
Is this what Dev was waiting for to make his trucker video? Is he now going to make his trucker video?
Dev will never make the trucker
I
video.
know. I already said it.
So by the way, supposedly this is if you don't follow Dev. Dev today apparently has a file he's about the Canadian protests. Supposedly he has a video about he's going to be talking about the Canadian election, but I guarantee you it's going to be dripped with liberal soy and not be communist. But
This was posted earlier today. Mark Carney did not leave the Bank of England on his own. He was pretty much forced out and resigned in disgrace. He lied about that. And I sent an article about that through the group chat. He is horrendous with money. He will destroy us. Even politicians from England have said, if you hire him, if you elect him, you're fucking yourselves over.
Says you are in the parliament where people are to make decisions which might not always suit you, but this is democracy,
Blanchet, I'm
which
going to
you
jump
don't know
in.
too much about.
I'm going to jump in here because I'm noticing what the clock is saying, and you brought up Gaza earlier, and I think our audience would be interested in hearing your views on the other major international crisis facing the world right now.
Before we get that, just to finish up on the healthcare, I just want to speak to healthcare workers.
Oh,
We
shut
are
up.
not in the healthcare
He
anymore.
won't let him. He won't move on. But he move on.
He is a total beans. He's a
It's
fag
what that
bean.
knows.
God, move on.
Right now who are deeply worried about the status of our healthcare system, to Canadians who believe and love our universal public healthcare system, to patients who are stressed out. If
Except
you're
the people
worried
who are
about
dying from
which
it.
Mr. Carney to believe, the one today or the one who spoke on previous shows and said he would
Mr.
cut,
King, I
vote for
think-
New Democrats, and we will fight to defend our healthcare.
I think your
we will never
supporters
let
would really
anyone
like
cut
to
it.
hear what you have to say about this question, and we have less than 5 minutes for it here.
Yeah,
What
shut
role
up.
should Canada play in the other major international crisis in this world, in the Middle East and the war in Gaza? Pierre Poilievre, would you start us off on that? What role can Canada play?
Well, first of all, we must condemn Hamas and, more importantly, the terror sponsors in Tehran who initiated the attacks, the horrific attacks of October 7th. We need to defeat the terrorists so that all the peoples of the world can live in peace and defend the right of, yes, Palestinians to have their own lives free from the oppression of Hamas dictators and Iranian intervention.
So far, that speech is more about unity than anything liberal we're trying to push so far. Am I right, or just biased toward conservatives?
No, it makes more sense because
He's trying to be more. He's saying fuck them, but he's being more reasonable in how he's saying it.
So there's a complicated relationship of. So one of Obama's great acts, and so
Marrying
was
a man?
Biden, was to unfreeze Iranian assets or give them money. And they wound up using that money because the Revolutionary Guard, even going back to the 80s with Reagan, we knew that they were their terrorist arm because they did the Beirut barracks bombing. So they have this problem of they fund terrorists. There's also a large amount of Saudi money that goes in to support terrorism too, but they're a little bit easier to manage because the Saudis do not. They do the proxy war against the Jewish population in Israel, and Iran believes the big Satan is the U.S. and little Satan is Israel. So whatever furthers the cause. So a lot of them will donate money. So if you give them money, they're liable to turn that into terrorist attacks, hypothetically, versus help their people. And somehow getting all those missiles into October 7th for the 5th or 6th time, it's just October 7th was the most severe, and it actually damaged one of the Iron Dome sites.
Well, and here's the other thing. October 7th also killed one other big thing, the two-state solution, because they have proven that keeping them around and letting them be there, they'll always be attacking. They'll always wait to attack. So
Yeah.
Like
Israel has the ability to live in freedom and peace. But I also want to say we need to get back to the Canadian tradition, which is that when people come to this country, they leave foreign conflicts behind. The rampaging riots targeting Jewish communities is utterly unacceptable, and it points to the growing chaos that we see on our streets after 10 years of incredibly irresponsible liberal policies, of weak borders, of dividing people into groups, of saying one thing to one group and the opposite to another.
And it's very true what he's saying, and that goes literally against what Carney was saying. We need to unite, we need to team up. Like, they're not about teaming up, they're about dividing.
You can keep your faith, you can keep your traditions, you can keep your everything. But you bend to our rules. You do not bring your jihadi bullshit over here. You do not bring your poop smells over here. You do not bring any of your bullshit, your rape, your crime stats.
So the concept you're seeing is he wants to do what is considered the American melting pot idea with integration. The issue with immigrants now, Europe is largely, as I say, in the U.S., we both dealt with this. They don't want to integrate. But here's also the other thing leading people have forgotten. See, Europeans by nature will always have a level of anti-Semitism that can be stoked and basically put out like squelch that fire. Largely is what's been happening with Europe. When you start to see a lot of Islamic immigration, you start to see the rise in Sharia law as well as a lot more anti-Semitism.
Yep, and they're very proud about, and they keep saying in Europe and in Canada and even in the U.S., they're bringing Sharia law here, and they're going to replace us. They're out and proud about saying they're replacing us. Not just the Jews, anyone who's not them.
Fact. Let's play.
They're dividing and conquering. We must end that division and unite our people so that everyone feels safe, and that when we come here, we put our foreign conflicts behind and we put Canada
people,
first.
People come from countries from around the world
He
and they care
cuts
deeply
off-
about where they come from. And
No,
they
I wanna
should be able
hear-
to do so.
I wanna
That's a
hear
part of
bullshit.
being
Rewind. I
in
wanna
our
hear it
country
from the
to
start.
have that.
What?
Rewind, because you interrupted him. I want to hear his bullshit from the start.
Freedom and peace. But I also want to say we need to get back to the Canadian tradition, which is that when people come to this country, they leave foreign conflicts behind. The rampaging riots targeting Jewish communities is utterly unacceptable, and it points to the growing chaos that we see on our streets after 10 years of incredibly irresponsible liberal policies, of weak borders, of dividing people into groups, of saying one thing to one group and the opposite to another, dividing and conquering. We must end that division and unite our people so that everyone feels safe, and that when we come here, we put our foreign conflicts behind and we put Canada
people,
first.
People
Singh,
come
please,
from
go
countries
ahead.
from around the world and they care deeply about where they come from. And they
And therefore they bomb our place.
No,
Should
he's
be able
saying
to do-
this.
Then maybe they should stay there.
No, he's saying this because he supports the Indian terrorists. We went over this last night. Was it last night or this morning?
Look
Last
at
night.
his face.
I wasn't as talkative this morning because I was a little bit high, but no.
Swear trouble.
He supports the Khalistani and he's very much with them. So yeah, this is why he's against. This is why you'll see that. Well, think about that as he says people are proud of where they come from. That's why they leave there, come here for a better life, and bring the shit that they have left behind.
Yeah,
Here.
it makes no sense. The stuff that was oppressing them, they bring over.
Yep.
Why?
Because they're stupid.
So that's a part of being in our country to have that freedom. Your treatment of Palestinians has been frankly disgusting. Your treatment
shut
of
the
people who
fuck up.
provide
Look at
care
your
and service
face.
to people in Gaza has been
Says
disgusting.
the guy who
On top
keep
of that,
cutting off
people in Israel
everyone.
and in Palestine deserve to live in peace and security. And Mr. Carney, to date, you've not acknowledged that what's going on in Gaza is now clearly become a genocide. It's important to call things out as they are, and you've not done that.
Mr. Carney,
Shut the fuck.
we need
I
to
want
work,
to
to go to
slap
your
him.
question, we need to work
with our international partners, maximum pressure, maximum encouragement for an immediate ceasefire. That's the first thing. Encourage the return of all of the hostages. Resumption of humanitarian aid. My government put in place $100 million of humanitarian aid, which is ready to go. With respect to where...
And again, where does the inflation come from? This! Exactly that! We are paying for this shit! I'm losing my mind, Carney!
Technically, we've been in a cycle of inflation or a near recession since the '08 financial crisis globally. And that led to basically Obama getting elected in the US, and it also nearly crashed the stock market too. So you're talking about, like with the tariff situation, if it becomes a recession, Trump and his entire legacy is screwed. Basically, and we have been in so close to a recession and printing money globally because that's how we counterbalance our system. We print money, then we destroy it, and it's a cycle that we rebuild it back up. Canada has been, I don't know if you've been doing the printing money thing, but when you're talking about a recession...
Yeah, Trudeau has been doing it for years now.
And it's the problem of it's not as much, because in the US, right, like under Biden, he had a lot more government spending. Because if you go look at a particular graph, printing money and spending, you'll see a very, not the natural curve, you'll see a giant spike. Now, it's not that government budgets don't shrink. The balanced budget is a myth. Mm-hmm. The issue itself is managing your budget. For God's sakes, in the U.S., as a prime example,
give me all the money. That's what I said.
We cannot even. We have every 3 to 6 months, our House argues over a continuing resolution because there's not enough money in the budget. Do you think Canada can manage that?
No.
No.
Impossible.
I comment on Twitter today about that. Why pay taxes when they can just print money?
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, taxes are theft.
Goes, yes, two-state solution, but it has to be a viable and free Palestinian state living side by side in peace and security with the state of Israel. I will
that will never happen.
Mr. Poilievre rightly mentioned Iran. The Iranian sponsors in this region, we have to be clear-eyed about the fundamental risks of Iran and do everything with our international partners to check it and turn it.
Mr. Blanchet.
If we are to work together, we will have to be consistent. The Jewish community in Quebec and Canada is harassed by a very little minority of radical Islamists. And we don't do so much. The law in Canada
I know people
says
that will freaking vote this guy.
May invite people to be violent,
I'm ashamed.
to propose genocide against another people if they can be hidden behind a religious motivation. They are in agreement with that. They are in agreement with that. They are in agreement with that. And we say it is a crime to invite people to violence and killing other people. And this is what is being done very often in Canada and Quebec with the approval of the Criminal Code of Canada. And we are saying this has to be changed. We have to change what we do before we want people elsewhere to change what they do.
Last minute in the segment, Mr. Poilievre.
This is about crises and leadership. And one crisis we have is in immigration. Because of this Liberal government's commitment to a radical policy called the Century Initiative, which seeks to bring our population up to 100 million people.
What's the Century
Initiative? They have allowed
Initiative?
massive overcrowding in our communities. that has caused housing shortages, job
Don't
shortages,
blame immigration
and
for
healthcare
the
shortages.
fault of your government.
And if I could,
the fact that you did
sorry,
not
I
invest
didn't
in
interrupt
housing,
you. I did
built
not
6
interrupt you, sir.
homes.
I
Oh
did
God,
not
I hate
interrupt
him
you.
so much.
He cuts him off again. So to answer your question, it's basically they want 1 extra million people to come here, and they just basically want the white to be replaced.
Okay,
Why though? I don't understand why. Why?
It's
For
the
the rest-
liberal. They are just
it's
crazy
the
nut
same thing in the
jobs.
States how they want to do it. It's their voting base.
It's a combination of the voting base, but there's also this. So the only birth rate, so the global fertility rate has been crashing.
Oh, it's not
For-
even that. It's the great
it-
replacement theory in action.
Okay, great replacement theory, if you go into it, is the idea like you're replacing the white people or the natives in the population. It's the reverse of the immigrant, the migrant, the white person pushing out the native population, or the natives being pushed out by what they perceive. Because it happened in Europe so much, it's now just groups replacing. Now the thing is, you can bring up a population, but it might be twofold, because the fertility rating in the US is utterly dropping. Europe is near a climatic fall. As I said in one of the others, China's feeling this. So now you're talking about bringing up. The problem is what you're, oh, by the way, the Indian guy, what you're seeing him do, I swear to God, he's doing the Destiny or Vosh thing where he's interrupting the points to make a point. That it's like objection. It's like the to quote the thing, it's the ace attorney at law. Objection, Your Honor. That's what he's doing.
No,
He does the Vosh. Just think about it. It's the Voshonian tactic. Evidence, sir. Evidence. 6 houses. This. It's
For the
all
rest of
the
this
talking.
video, I'm going to be calling Jagoff brown beans.
I do not blame
You're
Let him finish.
I do not blame immigrants. I blame the Liberal government, which brought this policy on. And Mr. Carney wants to continue with
But
the
it's also
Century
the
Initiative.
immigrants that they brought
This is
in.
crazy. We have to get back to normal levels of immigration, get rid of the fraud in the temporary immigration system, and ensure that the people who come here can arrive in numbers that we can house, employ, and care for. That's how it always was, and that's how we're going to restore
Thank you, Mr. Poilievre. That is our time for this segment. Those are our 5 themes, but we are not done yet. We are.
Okay, this is. I remember this part. This is golden, and I think you will like the next few minutes, Mandalore, because I don't know if you know what. Oh, I think you know. I think you know. So that will be a surprise.
No, I don't know, but you saying I'm going to like it, which means you're going to get good rage bait out of me.
No, but he only let 2 people talk, aren't there? There's 2 other guys. How come only? Because they're not paying
Well,
attention.
they don't really matter that much, to be honest.
Okay, that's why. Okay.
Are entering the next section of our debate tonight, what we're calling the leader's choice, something a little bit different. Each of you will get the chance to ask a question, any question, of any other leader. You can then debate the answer, and each one on one will last for 3 minutes. So, Mr. Singh, you have the first option here. Who do you want to ask your question of?
Mr. Carney.
Go for it.
Mr. Carney, as chair of Brookfield Investments, your company is one of the biggest tax dodgers in Canada. As chair, you approved decisions where Brookfield Investments bought up affordable homes, kicked out the tenants, and jacked up the rates. As prime minister, one of the first things you did was a tax cut that helped out mostly millionaires. And you have a plan to cut services for people. Now, I expect that of Mr. Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. That's very much a conservative plan. But my concern is that doesn't sound like what people want for a liberal leader. So my question to you is, Mr. Carney, whose side are you really on?
His own side. This is about time you guys understand. It's not a liberal guy. It's to each their own. This is his belief. Look at his face. He's like, I don't know what to say, but I will just try to dodge the question and revert back or reflect my question to someone else. He won't answer that because he doesn't have any answer.
leave the liberal or the progressive to
Thank you
rip
very much
down
for that question, Mr.
everybody
Singh.
else.
I'm on the side of Canadians. I'm in this for Canadians. I work for Canadians.
You see how his eyes sort of shifted to the
but
side.
you
I had
He is so full of
I
shit.
have a track record of public service for this country. Go back to something Mr. Blanchet referenced earlier, which is have I resolved any crises? We're in Quebec. If you ask anyone in the finance industry, if you ask anyone in government in Quebec in 2008, they'll know that I resolved the biggest crisis.
It's funny because Stephen Harper said otherwise, and he was in charge back then. So I don't know. Another lie.
Oh, Stephen Harper said, "Do not trust this fucker."
He'll do that.
He didn't look at
You won't
Al
have
Bundy,
fun.
I just-
But
60 million
But
of
may
dollars.
I? But I'm
This
in
is for these
fairness
two only.
with Mr.
This is
Singh.
for these two.
Mr. Singh. Yes, I have had a long career in the private sector. I'm proud of that career. I've always acted with integrity.
No,
and it brings
another
me
lie.
with experience that I can apply
no one's
in this
questioning your integrity,
in moment
sir.
of crisis.
And you certainly have
And-
served the country.
and-
But the problem is who have you served?
He's
you served
always
to benefit
talking,
those at
dude.
the very
So
top.
why don't they make him
you
shut
jacked
up?
up the price
Understand.
of homes for people living in a.
You're saying that, and I must tell you this because I've seen the French debate. We will never cover it because I don't know any place where they translate it. But he was cutting up people so much, he got muted. They literally cut off his mic for like 5 minutes by the end because they're like, "You keep cutting off everyone. We just cut your mic now."
Yeah, good. They should do it
Affordable
again.
homes as a
I would
strategic
suggest
decision. You dodge taxes, and then your decisions as prime minister show you're not prioritizing people, but you're prioritizing big business, billionaires.
So what have we done?
And for once, Jagnit is actually right. On that, he is right. That's the first time on this entire
The only
debate.
time he's right is about someone who's worse than him. Who has
Exactly.
That's kind of sad. Okay.
And the guy doesn't even know how to respond. He doesn't really he had no clear answer. And look at Carney, he's like cornered, like he's blocked there. Like whoever sees that debate and say Carney is a strong leader is I don't know what, but I envy that person.
As a government directly. So we've gone directly to workers using all of our proceeds from the tariffs, committing
More
all of
inflation.
them for workers, the workers most affected
But the
industries.
employment insurance isn't high
unlike
enough.
others, unlike others who
But the amount,
plan
let's
to
talk
use
about the
them,
amount.
use them to cut taxes. We are
The amount
focused
of
on.
the EI is not high enough, though. You have to accept that. Right now, it's
There
only
will
covering-
be additional programs. I am fully confident that the next government, whatever government is formed, or certainly if I'm in the next government, we will make additional programs.
But you didn't do that
for
so
the
far,
More
though.
so I
tax.
can't.
You could have.
couldn't. Well, you couldn't, given that
have
we're in an election
increased- you
process.
could have increased the
May
amount, though.
May I make a core point here, if I may, which is that when you think about workers here today and people watching at home, particularly younger people, there is an enormous opportunity in the trades, in the skilled trades. We are going to build this country in a way that has not been seen before. We are literally talking about hundreds of thousands, not jobs, but careers
But I
in
think
the
people are
trade.
worried, Mr.
And
Carney,
that's
that-
why we're investing in apprenticeships and mid-career.
But I think people are worried, Mr. Carney, if New Democrats aren't there to force liberals to make sure they remember about people they will forget.
Gentlemen, that is time. Thank you for that. Monsieur Blanchet, you have the next question. To whom would you like to put it?
Mr. Carney,
pause
you
a second.
avoided quite.
Sorry. Okay. There was something very poignant, and if you do not hear it, you will miss it. Singh was talking about there wasn't enough DEI. Now, this is where, look, I'm just a person who covers the politics and social situations going around the world.
And I'm just the asshole who eat bitches.
And I've had this on my own channel, and I've just made this my mission to understand why stuff works and why stuff's been happening for the longest time, whether it's gaming or anything. DEI is an extension of CRT, which goes back to political correctness, where you need to hire people. Now, there's a whole thing with DEI initiatives that liberals think, because it's undermined so much hiring practices of companies. And eventually hamper the creative processes of companies too, because it's wiping out ideas. And if that is why you don't have enough DEI initiatives, you need for an Indian person to be hired at a job, they have to be forced hired. Because, like in the US, they put black firefighters who failed the fitness test. Only so many, like, not even the fittest white firefighters could pass that test sometimes. And you're telling. And if that is Singh's thing, and he goes, you don't have enough DEI money, it's turning into an extortion scam that is costing corporations more money.
Well, and you know what it is? It's because of the massive bringing of Indians in. And there's, if you see, and it's not a joke that you see, like when there's an opening at Tim Hortons, when they have
their cheap labor.
It's cheap labor, and they go to the lines to apply for the job or down the block. And it's just in. So they want to put those people in front of people who live here. That's why I don't buy Tim Hortons.
Here's one of the big deals too. You see a lot with DEI and the H-1B visa situation. It happens in the U.S. and I bet it's in Canada the same way. They bring these people in, like they'll bring these other like second tier programmers from India or like doctors and nursing staff, bring them over and give them jobs because you could pay them less. Or you can bring them in under the guise of it. And I bet you that's how a lot of Indians got into Canada under specialization visas as they get into the U.S.
I think in Canada it's school visas.
Yeah.
Because there's been a huge rate, and they've been brought up lately, that people who brought in for education visas and never went to school and refusing to leave, they get housing, they get schooling and whatnot, and they're refusing to leave.
Yeah, that's frequent.
There's been a huge protest of student visas who want to stay here after their schooling is done and think they deserve the right. No, the whole point of student visas is so you can learn stuff in a country that's not full of street shitters. Well, kind of unfortunate we are getting to that, but who have who can actually teach you smart things rather than your dumbass things in your home country while you're leaving there, and send you back with that knowledge to improve your country. But no, they think they're coming here and that they can stay here, and they're protesting and they're fighting. And there's so many people who've been sneaking in under student visas and work visas. The work visas are more the what Nigerians who are coming here and whatnot. They come here and they try and stay longer, and I know someone who was falling for this until I corrected her. He was falling for they seem to like fat white chicks. And yes, I told my friend she was a fat white chick. That's the type of friend I am. I'm on it.
That's good. I like it. That's why we get along.
You're forgetting the one of the greatest products of this style of thing, and you think this is a relatively new phenomenon. Barack Obama, his father literally came to the U.S., met Barack's mother, got her pregnant, and then fucked out. Eventually was like deported for another reason. Let him stay, and then he got deported to his country of origin.
What's that saying I posted recently? Once you go black, you deserve it. Multi, how could you say such racial things?
I didn't say it. Shut up.
Skillfully, the questions of Mr. Singh, but first, let me correct something. In 2000,
I must say, these are sharks. They smell blood. They go after Carney because Carney is bleeding out.
2008, not so much by your decision. $10 billion were given to car industry in Ontario, while 60 millions, not billions of dollars, were lent to lumberwood throughout the whole of Canada. I don't believe that's the right way to manage a crisis since you did not recoup the money from the car industry. Then, you have been the manager of Brookfield. It's supposed to be a green investment fund. But we now know that 50% of the investments of Brookfield is in fossil fuel. It's not so green.
Again,
Whoa. Not even that. He's skipping over the whole point. How much of the Green Slush Fund went into the pockets of Trudeau and his friends?
well, you said where did the money went? You said it a bit earlier. You started kind of with that.
But no. He said 50% went to where things that were not green. That's not the issue. It's the fact that most of the money went into pockets of people.
He also said it.
I
we
didn't
can
hear it.
rewind.
No, don't rewind. I trust you. But either way, the biggest issue is it was stolen money.
That's
how
true.
How is that going to get back to Canadians for the carbon tax? How is that same thing going to work when it's just all pocketed? Pockets do not gain investment.
Trudeau is a stealer and Carney is not better.
So the thing is, you're going to hear a lot. Okay, so what you're seeing here in display is called the paradox, and this affects and paralyzes liberals. Paradox of intolerance. That is a whole discussion that goes beyond this. But here's the other thing you're saying as well. Green initiatives. It's not that we can't create green industry. Green industry and fuel alternatives take time to properly develop. Like, there's sections of alternative nuclear power that we have, like with thorium and other stuff, but that takes research and that takes time. The problem is all these initiatives that the Democrats, liberals, and liberal philosophy doesn't like, because it got so bad in Germany. They were like, we're going to close all our nuke plants, right? Because it's not clean. They had to reopen strip mining pits in the countryside. That is now becoming problematic. Germany is going to go back to heating their entire country on lumber cut down from trees. This is literally green energy initiatives are good to a degree. You can stick up a wind farm, but wind farms aren't good. You can go that kills a lot of birds, by the way, and diverts them into airports and human areas. Now, the other part is you can go hydropower. Canada can take full advantage of that because you got a lot of it. Like, you got, like, the Great Lakes. Find a spot. But no one talks about this. And
we give it to you guys in the States because we got liberals, and liberals are
okay, the power grid has to be shared. It's not like, and it doesn't like go to all the U.S. You got to be along the Great Lakes.
Like, you guys sell back the water we sold you, but at higher price.
Yeah, that's what.
You seem to want to support oil and gas industry. That's interesting. You want to support prefab housing, and it's also in the investments of Brookfield, but not in Canada. You want to support nuclear power, smaller reactors, which are more dangerous, by the way, and Brookfield has investments in Westinghouse. You have hidden the money of Brookfield in Bermuda and Cayman Island, $30 billion. Billions of dollars lost for Canada. You are having your taxes being paid by families, workers, elders in Canada and Quebec instead of paying your own taxes. So I want to know, will you, before the election, reveal all the details of your assets, as Mr. Singh has done, as Mr. Poilievre has done, and as I have done? We have a right to know under those circumstances.
Let's let him answer.
Well, the first thing is I want to say a word about. I'll say a word about Brookfield. this is a Canadian success story. It is the largest infrastructure investor and developer in the world. It is one of the largest, if not the largest, developer of renewable power in the world. And who benefits from that? That's Canadian pensioners. That's Quebec pensioners. That is teachers. That is firefighters. It is a series of people, including
the people that are behind these industries, the CEOs and myself, but I won't tell because that won't look good.
individuals, including individuals on this stage, benefit from that. Now, always acted with integrity.
Lie! Another lie from Carney! And guys, also vote for that.
Why you act surprised every time it happens? It's a regular thing for him.
Now I shouldn't be surprised. You're right. That's true. I'm gullible. I pretend to be a true Canadian there.
Shareholders of Brookfield when I was there. I have left that. I have followed all the rules well in advance.
Oh yeah, that's why he hid his money in the States to not pay tax.
See, here's the thing. They probably have the same provision when you run for Congress or elected office. You need to disclose your financial information. But you know what's funny about that? There's a big push when Trump was supposed to reveal his tax records. So you know how Trump got out of fervent bankruptcy in the 90s? He actually took a loss when he lost on the Taj Mahal, or takes a loss. He takes advantage of the tax breaks and that style stuff. And they don't have to make all their tax records or their investments public. Mark my words. And every single time you've seen a major green industry push, even under Elon or with Tesla as a prime example, the lithium contamination from those plants, like in Canada, got so bad, nothing can grow, or everything within 5 to 6 miles of one of those plants is heavily contaminated. So much so it pissed off the green eco freaks that live up there. Now, you're talking about investment opportunities where someone sees solar panels, or in there, these people saw this as a viable alternative, yes. But it also got turned into, these are investments that never paid off because it was free money given by initiatives from government. Now, what's funny, let me push back a second on what the Quebecer said on small nuclear reactors. There has been massive research into what is sand-style reactors. They go, so if these reactors fail, the next generation of nuclear reactors have a system that if it melts down or starts to melt down, it, like a sand reactor as an example. I'm not going to be able to explain this because I'd have to do research, not like physics and chemistry wasn't my thing. Basically what happens is, if the failsafe occurs, sand floods a section that heats the reactor that causes a reduction of almost 95% of a disaster, and the rest can be manageable. You don't have a major nuclear incident anymore.
Yeah.
These people haven't looked at nuclear technology or fission technology development. They have better safeguards built in, but no one wants to do it. Because if the issue is dumping the fuel and burying it, but there's this whole thing of a lot of this has so many layers that it was ways for liberal people to invest and get more money. But at the same time, they want green energy. They want energy for the masses, but they don't get behind the programs to do it.
Yeah.
Reveal your assets like we all did.
And working for the people of Canada.
What do you own? Why
that is
don't
time,
you tell
gentlemen.
Canadians
That
in
is
Dodging,
Mexico
time.
what you
escaping,
Monsieur
own?
Blanchet, we're moving on to
fleeing,
Mr.
running
Poilievre now, who
away.
has his opportunity to ask the question of whomever he'd like here, and that will be?
Mr. Carney, but if I could
Look him up.
begin by setting the stage. The choice in this election is after
He's
a
very
lost
elegant
liberal
and very much
decade
a
of
performance
rising
guy.
cost and
You gotta
crime and a
love him
falling
about that.
economy
Yeah.
under America's thumb. Do we want to elect them to a fourth term? Or do we want to change? Change so that you can afford food and homes. Change so that you can be safe on your street, and change so that your paycheck grows faster than your cost of living.
It seems to
Change with a new
care, you know,
conservative
like
government.
on the right,
Because
Carney
Mr.
is
Carney
like,
is
I don't
not
give a
changing.
crap.
Mr. Carney, in 2020, it was recorded, you began advising Justin Trudeau. It's still on the Liberal Party website today that you are Justin Trudeau's economic advisor. They might want to update your website on that. On June 3rd of 2021, you said that inflation would be a sign of economic progress. And you advised governments, including Justin Trudeau's, your Liberal government, to print money, which led to the worst inflation crisis in a generation. Now, that means that mothers went to bed with empty fridges and empty bank accounts, worried how they'd feed their kids, that seniors worried they'd be evicted from their...
My mother is making twice the minimum wage, and she has 2 minor under or guardship. I don't know how to call it. She takes care of 2 minor, and she is struggling a lot. I did lend her money. She did borrow money from me a lot because she cannot make it work. And she doesn't spend that much. It's just the inflation, her apartment, the food, her car. And she doesn't even have an house. She has a goddamn apartment. She sleeps in the living room because she doesn't have a room of her own. And she makes twice minimum wage.
So what people don't get about inflation, right? It costs. So in Weimar Germany post World War I, when they put the penalties on Germany because Germans needed to suffer for starting World War I, you would take the idea is why inflation is ultimately terrible is because you could devalue or print your way out of a crisis, but eventually it takes more dollars or more whatever to actually pay on something. So the meme of taking like a cart full of gold to the bank, right? To basically buy like stuff, they don't realize your own currency has lost so much value in the process. It takes more of that because in Weimar Germany, the currency eventually got devalued so much that it took more than what people had. The poor could take, like, eventually items or buckets full of cash places. That's what inflation does, printing money. That
And
is the effects of it.
inflation is so bad. We are about to get thrown out of J7 because we are so broke. And that's because of the Liberal, because they were in charge for the last 10 years. Any thoughts on that, Mandalore? We didn't hear of you for a few minutes now.
I've just J7, like, Carney is just as bad as Trudeau. He's worse because he's not even showing like he cares. At least Trudeau could put on a smile while he bullshitted, like he had some sort of sniffing his own farts and enjoying it. Carney just looks miserable. He's not even trying. Like,
He knows he's no politician. I'm wondering if he even knows or understands why he's there. I think he's like, yeah, after that, like, I'm out. I'm done with the
Okay, like
politics.
in the U.S., what's funny, like just breaking today, by the way, in the U.S., Dick Durbin is not going to be seeking re-election, so he's clearing the Democrat platform. He's been one of the leading liberals who have been behind a lot of their policies for a while. What I'm getting from Carney is either the step in and they will replace him with a better candidate, right? Or let's go with the alternative here. They're going with the idea that Carney is the best with what they have. And
they won't have stopped like 60% of the people to
like
vote. If
what
that
they
would be the
don't
case.
realize, their own cause is bleeding out. Their own cause, because what you're seeing with Singh, right? Singh, as radical as he is, it's kind of like he's doing the Bernie Sanders thing in the US. He hurts his own side more than he hurts the other ones.
That's true.
And
homes that young people believe they'd never be able to own a home in the first place. Now, in retrospect, that you look back on the liberal decisions that you advised Justin Trudeau to take, will you look at the camera in the eye and apologize to the many people who suffered as a result of the inflationary policies that you advised Justin Trudeau to implement?
You know, I said earlier, but I'm going to say it again. I know you want to be running against Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau isn't here.
Are you?
Yes, he's here, but he wears makeup.
I did not provide any of that advice. I did not
Yes,
provide
he
any
did.
of that
It's
advice.
on the Liberal
That's
Party
under
website.
lie.
Are you accusing your Liberal Party of lying about your role? Because it says today you can go to the Liberal Party website now, and it says that you were Justin Trudeau's economic advisor.
The way you judge someone, in my view, is how they act, what they do when they have responsibility. Twice I was a central bank governor. And in both cases, if I may, in both cases when I was responsible for inflation,
No, he didn't.
Inflation
He wasn't
was
fired.
less than
He was
2%.
forced to resign.
I'll add that when I was here
Give him a chance
responsible for the Bank of Canada, inflation was less than 2%.
Be fair.
Our dollar was at parity. That is the kind of success that I can deliver for this country coming out of this crisis. And
if he was so successful, he wouldn't have been asked to leave. When you're successful, when you got a good player, you don't ask your player, can you leave? You want to keep the player, but then they don't want to keep him.
So he's trying to do the Kamala Harris thing, not the Biden thing, where you are only as good as a politician as the regime or administration you were attached to. And Carney was attached to Trudeau either by proxy because he either agreed with Trudeau's platform or endorsed it and also proposed it, because he's trying to say now, I'm not Justin Trudeau, but he still has that stain on him. This is something a lot of American politicians try to run from, but you cannot run from your administration's mistakes.
No, it's worse than that and more obvious than that. As I mentioned yesterday, people who were fired under Trudeau for corruption or were so incompetent that he had to fire them because it was hurting him.
Carney hired them back.
It was three ministers, I think, he hired back that were under Trudeau's, who were fired, who didn't just quit. They were fired.
This is what people are voting for, folks.
What is at stake here?
You were the economic advisor to Justin Trudeau that gave us the worst inflation that we have had in a generation, because the policies that you implemented and those of the MPs that are still in your ministry.
To the
fellow Canadians,
crisis which
the last 10 years has been about the Liberals. The next 10 years should be about you.
And that's time. Mr. Carney, the good news is the next question is yours.
Well, I'm going to ask myself a question. Actually, I'm going to ask a question which has been troubling me.
You made one funny point.
You see, this will be the silver bullet. My favorite moment of the entire debate. I'm so glad we finally reached that. And hopefully, among these 11 viewers, some of you didn't see that, and this will be your first time experiencing that. It's legendary. And if someone was voting for liberals up to now for Carney, and he sees that and he still wants to vote for him, I don't know in which planet you are living in. I don't
Retard.
know which I don't know which utopia you think you're heading to with liberals, but this will be the I will be aided by YouTube, but this will be the kill shot that will bury Mark Carney. Be ready.
It's troubling me because, we are in a very dangerous and divided world.
Who is it to?
I'm going to ask a question of Mr. Poilievre. Why not? We're in a dangerous and divided world. We talked earlier about the challenges in the Middle East, the threats from Iran, threats from Russia, Russia's aggression in Ukraine. We have the threats from China, which I raised. We have the United States, which is fundamentally changing its security relationships, its commercial relationships. We have all this. And in the context of that, everyone on this stage, Mr. Blanchet, Mr. Singh, myself, we have our top secret security clearance. We have our top secret security clearance. I got mine within 3 weeks. It wasn't hard, but I felt it was important that I had it so I could be in a position to be informed about that dangerous world and take decisions that. And Mr. Poilievre, it is now 950 days, if my numbers are right, since you've had the opportunity to get your top secret security clearance, and you've refused. Why?
So it's funny because at that moment, Carney was proud. He thought he cornered Pierre Poilievre. He was like, we all did the thing politician do here. That means, in case you don't know, that's a gag order. So it's basically you vow to secrecy. So if you speak anything you will learn through that, well, they can put you in jail for that. And he's like, you didn't sign it while all of us did. Why? It's a gotcha moment. So
It goes deeper than that, Multi, because to be cleared for even in U.S. highest government office, whether you are a military person in charge of going into operations, and I've actually dealt with people, have friends who have had to go through this clearance process, you have to prove you are trustworthy. Now, every nation, like under Trump, as an example, no one really in his first administration, he didn't want to give it to what was it, the Jared Kushner, because he has never part of the government. He goes like, but Trump's like, you need to give him a government clearance. Why? That government clearance allows you to have access to information. They don't want to give out these things because certain level of access it gives. Not the fact alone they can hit you with classified documents later. That can happen. That's happened to David Petraeus. They tried to get that on Trump. It's a double-edged sword. The issue itself is that's not a gotcha as much as it's required for the job. But
the gotcha is more like, why didn't you sign it well when we did? And that's more the gotcha.
But
then.
it's also too, you got to think of it, and I see what his answer is, because you have to be cleared for it. That means you have to have a clear background check. You can't have any blemishes, or usually the intelligence community doesn't want to deal with you.
Yeah, and the gotcha there is Carney is like, you had the chance to do it, you just didn't do it. So here's the response Pierre Poilievre has, and that response alone should be enough to convince people that are more center or that don't really know who to vote for they should be leaning more toward Pierre Poilievre after that. So let's just hear him out because again, this is what I call the kill shot.
Well, first of all, I have got my security clearance when I was a minister. I got top secret clearance at the time, so there's no problem getting that. But when the government made this recent offer, they said that if I got the secret security clearance briefings, that I would be gagged under the security law, and I could be prosecuted if I spoke freely about matters of foreign interference. Now, given that Canada has experienced Chinese interference by Beijing, the government of China, in 2 consecutive elections, I needed to do my job to speak freely without fear of prosecution. And that was not something I would be allowed to do. Even Thomas Mulcair, the former leader of the NDP, said that when he was the leader of the opposition, he never would have accepted the kind of gag order that your government and Mr. Trudeau's government was attempting to impose on me. And it's good that I'd made that decision because it has allowed me to speak freely about things like the case where one of your candidates, sir, actually said that he wanted to send a political opponent to China under a bounty threatening his life or imprisonment, and you refused to get rid of him. Now, it might have something to do with the fact that you went to China not long ago to get a $250 million loan for your company. But the reality is you refused to stand up for a Canadian who was being threatened by a foreign government. And I was able to speak freely on that matter because I refused the gag order that the Liberal government attempted to impose on me.
Well, there's a couple of interesting things. I think people at home have seen a robust debate here, and it's been a robust campaign, and it has not stopped Mr. Blanchet or Mr. Singh at times during his campaign by making challenges with respect to these issues. So one can address it. I will observe, as someone with the top secret security clearance, that China is not the only country that is accused of foreign interference.
More lies. And by the way, he didn't really answer. He just dodges everything. He is like Neo in the Matrix. He dodges bullets, like that was the kill shot. Pierre Poilievre knew that one was coming, and now he's like, yeah, you thought you cornered me. I actually cornered you. It's a reverse play. Any thoughts, D-Lord?
Okay. You know what that reminds me of? This is what it reminds me of. Go back to, it's like all these politicians, and especially when Trump sits, like there's the key moments when you understand when the intelligence community tells you something is going on and you don't either A, acknowledge it publicly because it's damaging, or that, like, Carney would be the person who is like Trump at the Helsinki conference during his first term, stands next to Putin, gets asked the question, did Putin, and this was a foreign journalist that asked this, are you going to be sit here next to Putin and then say he had no part in hacking the elections of 2020? Now, you do not understand how damaging that was in the eyes of the people who are either believe in the military or having accurate intelligence, because if you cannot speak publicly, and this happens today, about China's interference, the greatest game the Russians ever did, and the Chinese have learned this, is as soon as Obama opened the floodgates to them, they started getting their claws into every side of our government. It came out that the elections were hacked or disrupted by shit posters, and we wound up, our FBI found this out, and when the politicians were presented with this, they chose not to speak about it publicly, and every single time you were either a conspiracy nut or you were breaking confidential orders. So think about this when you talk about the interference It's like saying, and I'm sure it's no different in Canada, because these people at this upper echelon or crust of the government are given certain levels of knowledge, whether they listen to them in their briefings they get from their intelligence advisors. So, him not signing it, they literally said, if we give you this clearance, right, and this is the conservative guy, you cannot speak on this or interference.
He didn't want to do that. And to add more, he said Chinese involvement there.
And that's been a big deal, by the way, Multi. You're not seeing it in your coverage because your internet is largely throttled. I mean, granted, in the US, we have Google screwing up searches now, which mainly they're replacing it a lot with AI summary.
We can't even post news articles on Facebook.
Oh yeah, no, your social media highs, but like in the US, we have heard about, like, there's one of the biggest things is the US has talked about this, and this leaks out more often than not, about the secret police facilities that the Chinese operate, that they cart people off with.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing. We will speed through what's left because I just seen the message from Mandalore. So let's hear out more about that
gentlemen, that
bloodbath.
is time for the segment. That's our time. Now, closing statements are still a few minutes down the road, so we have a little bit of time for some quick hit Q&As for each of you right now. Short questions, 45 seconds, please, on the answers, and we're going to go left to right as I look at you right now. Mr. Poilievre, you get the first question. To the best of my knowledge, you have not offered a hard timeline, as the other parties have, to meet Canada's NATO commitment of 2% spending on defense. When would you hit that target?
My aim will be to 2030. That said, when we renegotiate our trade deal with the U.S., I know it's their priority to see us increase our military budget. One of the things I will say to the Americans is the more free trade, tariff-free free trade we have, the faster we can rebuild our military in Canada and reassert our sovereignty. And we will use that money to have heavy icebreakers in the north, Poseidon aircraft, fighter jets, a new base in the north, double the Arctic Rangers, fill the vacancies in the armed forces, and rebuild the warrior spirit that characterized our military since the birth of our country. We will rebuild our forces, and we will stand behind our veterans.
Thank you, Mr. Poilievre. Mr.
It's
Carney,
clear.
your question.
We know
you
where
have
he's
cut
hitting
both
at.
the consumer carbon tax and the capital gains tax increase that you inherited from your
Okay, let
predecessor.
me say something
Is
on
that
the
an
military.
admission that the
NATO
Liberals
should
made
be
life
spending
less affordable
5% of its budget. This has been one of the leading things when you talk about military spending. You look at who has funded the UN and either funded NATO. It's largely been the US for 50 plus years, going through the Cold War. This has been a thing of, there was actually stuff in the charter, whether or not they acknowledge if an attack on one NATO country is a call to war and everyone else should support their allies, they should be having their own military as a NATO standard. This has been impact. You know why Trump has had this in Europe? Because if a war breaks out in Europe, it does twofold. It makes it sure your country has a decent military to stand a chance until allies come in, or you can actually support an effort.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Canadians.
I think let me give you the rationale behind both of those changes. First, with respect to the consumer carbon tax, in effect, it'd become too divisive for Canadians. Canadians received rebates. On the whole, they received more than the tax actually was. But some had represented that it was a tax without a rebate. It became divisive. It didn't serve its purpose. It made a relatively modest contribution to overall climate goals. I got rid of it. First act, made Canadians whole. Secondly, but with respect to the capital gains tax, it's come up again, I'll be quick. This is a fundamental issue. We need to build this country. Builders, innovators, entrepreneurs need to be rewarded. That's why
More
I brought it back.
inflation.
And that's time. Thank you. Mr. Singh, would you change the existing cap on immigration?
I've said that the level of immigration, first of all, we need immigration. It's fundamental.
No, we don't need to. We don't have
We speak
houses.
to any small business owner. You
Right
speak to
there.
people here in Quebec. You
Mute
speak to
him.
farmers.
No, he's
It's
not
fundamentally important.
immigration. He's
A couple things, though,
pro-Indian
we know we
immigration.
need to be able to set the amount of folks that we welcome to our country
You want
at
to
a level
overthrow
that it meets our
the
needs. So I would
Canadian
ensure that we've got
government
an
with his
expert
Indian
panel
people.
that makes that determination based on our economic needs. We also know that we should be very clear that the lack of investment from liberals and conservatives resulted in the fact that we have a shortage in housing. That's something that we've got to fix. I should also point out that if you are worried about the cuts being proposed by liberals and conservatives, vote for New Democrats. We'll fight back to protect
Raise your
Canadians
taxes
and make
so
sure
you
we've got
can't
the right immigration levels.
Thank you, Mr. Singh.
More
That's time. Mr.
homeless as
Belcher,
well,
Quebec,
because they
I
want more
believe,
immigration
is now
and
the
we don't
only
have the
province
houses.
with a carbon tax. Do you think that's fair?
It's not entirely true. It's not a tax. What Quebec has is a system by which we invite big emission companies, I don't know how to translate that, to reduce their emissions. If they do not, then they have to pay. It goes into a fund which is invested then in reducing emissions. Our partner is California, which makes this a huge deal about reducing emissions. This is what we do. This is to be compared to what Europe does. And by the way, Europe would impose tariffs on Canadian oil if it ever got there. We're quite proud of that. And we have to be responsible because this is much less expensive than doing nothing to fight climate change.
That's time. We're going to do another set of quick hits here. Left to right again.
Kyoto.
And 30 seconds this time.
The
Mr.
Kyoto
Poilievre.
police.
Be brief because, like, we are limited
Yes.
in time.
Okay, so the Kyoto. Okay, initially years ago, the Kyoto Accords on carbon emissions, it was proven to be bullshit. The reason why Trump wanted to pull out of the carbon initiatives globally, because it's not working. You have to go after the developing nations. The French Accords recently were very controversial in Europe. What two countries do you think are the leading carbon producers in the world?
China and India.
China and India.
Yes.
We know that.
And
whatever we do is not.
It doesn't impact shit,
Yeah.
but it also proves cows farting screw up more. But this is all the
Previously
thing.
promised to defund the CBC as one of your very first acts as Prime Minister. Is that still the plan?
Yes.
Yes, CBC will continue to operate as a self-funded,
like that.
Canadian-owned and controlled non-for-profit.
Anyway, they spread
that
propaganda.
raises
So what's
money
the
like
point?
other media
They don't inform
organizations
people.
sponsorships, subscriptions, advertising, licensing fees, and countless other things that will ensure Canadians who still want to listen and view its content will be able to do so. And at the same time, we'll allow freedom of the press so that everybody has their voice heard and they can make their own decisions.
Thank you. And
Thank you, Mr.
the
Carney. Next
media
question
is
to you,
like
30
Radio
seconds.
Canada
Would you
and
remove some of
TVA. They
Canada's
don't
legal
want that.
tax
They're
avoidance
scared of
loopholes
it.
that companies that you have worked for have used?
Look, I think that what we need to do
Would
is
you
undertake
crack down
a
on tax
comprehensive
avoidance?
review of
No.
our corporate tax
In
system.
short, you won't.
And do that on the basis of the right principles. We've got to have fairness,
Fairness?
transparency,
Bring back your money from
sustainability.
the USC.
and competitiveness. So we need a tax system, a corporate tax system, including being part of a international minimum corporate tax through the
It's
OECD.
a circus.
And
That guy
time.
is a
Mr. Singh, the
clown.
question for you is, if you hold the balance of power after this election is over, what would your price be to support another party?
We've laid out our priorities. We want to make sure we bring down the cost of groceries, build homes that people can afford. I can also tell you that
Smart
we would
immigration.
defend CBC, unlike Mr. Poilievre, who wants to cut it. And we would close tax loopholes and offshore tax havens, even though Mr. Carney didn't respond to that. And selling stocks and shares to make profits and then having less taxes on that is not hard work. And so those aren't the job creators.
We want
The
to
people who
sell
are job
stocks.
creators are the hardworking men and women that contribute to our economy.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Monsieur
So
Blanchet,
is CBC
kind of the same
your
question.
Canadian
If you hold the balance of
Broadcasting
power in the next
Network
minority parliament,
funded
if
by
it is
the
that,
government?
what would be the
Okay.
price
They
of
are
your
That's like the
liquidating.
BBC being
Respect
funded
for
by the
Quebec.
people.
That's quite easy.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't want to go
All you do with
against
balance
what
power, respect
Canada
for Quebec, not
wants to do
help
for itself,
Canada.
but I don't
Quebec.
want Canada to impose an economic vision or a multiculturalist vision on Quebec, which is different in terms of language and values and secularity and equality between people. So I want to be a partner, and if Quebec is respected, Canada has nothing to fear from the bloc because we vote for what is good for Quebec. It only has to be good for Quebec.
Thank you, Monsieur Blanchet. Now, we have one last question
No,
for each of you. We'll go right to left.
That's the end because unfortunately we were limited in time.
Well, we can do a quick. We can do this quickly if it goes quickly.
Okay.
I just might
Okay.
dip out.
This time, as I look
Okay,
at
well,
bit of
if
an
since you
offbeat
dip out,
question.
we will
Mr.
do
Blanchet,
the outro.
what is
after.
your biggest regret during this campaign?
That's a very good question. I'm not very fond of regrets, I would say, but we should have started sooner to see that we had to create the environment for a deal in which Quebec and Canada would be, one bigger than the other, but partners to be stronger in front of Mr. Trump and showing that maybe nobody here is the partner to let go alone without being surveyed or controlled or supervised by a Quebec voice.
Thank you, Mr. Blanchet. Same question, Mr. Singh. Your biggest regret of this campaign?
Not being able to meet as many people as I would love to have. It's a
Like-
short campaign, and so I can't get to as many
Doesn't
communities
care.
that I wanted to.
There's no
I
money
think
to get
one
a
of the
real-
honors of my
they're
job
in a
is to be able
horrible
to meet
vehicle.
people and to hear their stories, and then to take their stories and concerns and bring them to Ottawa and to fight for those people. And so I want you to know, even though I haven't made it to your community, I'm going to fight like hell to make sure that you're represented, that we never let any government cut our health care,
Unless
that
you're
we
white.
defend the values that we care so deeply about. We make
If you're
life
white,
more
we don't care
affordable.
anymore.
That's my commitment to you. Even if I didn't get to see you, that's my commitment.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Mr. Carney, same question. Biggest regret of the campaign?
To be honest, it's the same answer. This is an astonishing country. It is an amazing country.
I
And
can do tax
the
even and
opportunity
get away with
and
it.
the responsibility that comes with it of being with Canadians,
His biggest
hearing their
regret is
stories,
being allowed
their
to talk
challenges,
too much and shit.
drawing strength and ideas from them.
His biggest
and
regret is
working
losing to
be part
everyone
of
on
the
that
solution
panel.
is the greatest honor of my life. But the regret is that it is also a big country, and it is a short period of time.
Mr. Poilievre, last word to you.
I actually agree with these two gentlemen. I had a rule that at all my rallies, even when they're really big, I would stand in front of a flag and greet every single person and hear their stories and learn their struggles.
Yep, and there's videos of that.
And that was always touching to me, that they would put their faith in me or in any of us.
Yeah.
But we've been in such a rush because we have to get off to the next event, so we haven't been able to stop and do that. And I want you to know out there, I haven't forgot about you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poilievre. It is
Who doesn't vote conservative after this? He did the
Retards.
Uno
How many
card.
times do I need to say it? I don't want to get your channel banned for saying that too much.
But I swear, this was a bloodbath for the Liberal. If you still vote Liberal, I'm sorry, but he's right. You're stupid. You want statu quo. You vote for the ideal, what the Liberal used to be 15 years ago and not what they are now. It's sad, it's frustrating, it's irritating. Conservative are really the only option. And with this, this is the outro now. What do you have going on your end of the internet, Mandalore?
Probably gonna be torturing ourselves talking about Andor tomorrow, depending on what time I wake up and how me and Dealer figure that out. Other than that, I don't know. Sleep. I'll try and sleep.
Amazing. What about you, D-Lord?
I will have my Kingdom Come Deliverance finale, hopefully, or I'll be starting Expedition 33 tomorrow. But I have to get with Mandalore here, and we're going to go over Andor, at least till it ends, and
other stuff.
And other things. The little teaser, we're going to be starting to talk about Star Wars Legacy series. We've been trying to do a bit of reading on that. And I do dabble in the politics, and I apologize if I come across as the weird. I'm not exactly 100% conservative American, but I understand what goes on. So, like, if I talk about the intelligence and how it works, they don't tell you that publicly. So, the idea is I just look at it. And there's also what you're seeing in Canada, what I see from the conservative candidate is he's your best shot because he's campaigning like one of the moderate Republicans here, but he's going to have to execute on what he's doing. He's probably your best shot because the rest are just tearing themselves down because they cannot maintain that regime. Now, if you want change, you vote for him. Now, the problem is there will be obstruction. It's kind of difficult because even though Americans make fun of Canadians, you are our brothers to the north. But the thing about it is, we aren't always going to agree. But the thing about being able to defend yourselves, like I've known a lot of people, some of the best soldiers I've seen that have, like come into Iraq have been Canadian. So bear in mind, we are symbiotically related. But like the Green Energy Initiative has been a pocket drain on everybody because he goes, we're going to support California. Listen for the keywords. California, it hasn't helped California. They have ruined their energy grid on it. But bear in mind, that's what I
And
do.
interesting. And in my end of the internet, well, we will be doing another stream a bit later if the Lord you're still available, and maybe Mandalore. I don't know. Depends on if Mandalore is still awake at that time. But more
You're making me
politics.
sound like a bum.
More politics, and next week we are back at our regular content because election week will be over, and I usually stream movie reviews. I talk about
Yeah, here's the
movies.
thing: if you want to cover, you want to cover election night. That'd be a long stream. That would get you views.
Unfortunately, I will work because I'm back at work next week. I was lucky this week to have my vacation, my paid vacation approved. But next week, I don't know. We will see. Anyway, I
Well,
will end the stream with this thing that was meant as an intro to start off that big saga about the debate, and then we are out. I am a French Canadian and I review TV shows and I play video games on this channel. However, this is one of the most important election here in Canada, so therefore we will be covering a lot of Canadian politics this week and probably in other weeks. So I hope you will tune in to have my perspective on everything.